Okay. I'm slowly waking up. Yeah, a few seconds. Well, actually, I don't have to give me a few seconds, but hey everybody. So today plan is we're gonna be watching video called was it this one? So it's called like how Persona 3 lost its identity. So during the video, I probably pausing a lot if I have something I want to say about it. And yeah, feel free to add stuff if you have something you want to say about it. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. I just woke up not long ago, so I'm a little bit slow right now. Actually, I'm slow all the time. Okay. um, but I so my first impression before we watch this is I don't know what he mean by lost its identity, but some people told me that he's just trying to say that the game is not edgy enough. If that's the case, if that's really the case, then I probably agree with him. But I probably also think that it doesn't really matters that much, because I think losing identity doesn't really entirely mean a bad thing. It also doesn't really mean it's a good thing. It's depend on the situation. But in Persona 3 case, and if it in this particular case, if what matters is the edginess, I don't think that matters. It might matters to him, I don't know, but it doesn't matters to me. When I was playing Persona 3, what I remember from it is you know, how people are dealing with the concept of death, how people are coming together, or how people are, you know, figuring out how to live and stuff like that. What stick with me is not the edginess of this, is what I'm trying to say. And I don't think it lose that the important thing that's important to it. But it could be wrong. I mean, I didn't watch the video yet, so he might actually say something else. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, I think we're just gonna get right into it. Yeah.
Persona 3
On.
The Persona 3 remake was pretty disappointing to me. Don't get me wrong, I liked the game well enough. It's just that when compared to
That's always a good start when you make a YouTube video essay, by the way. I also do this kind of stuff. It's kind of nice to say that, like, it's shit or something like that, or I don't like it. It's a good way to get people to keep watching, but I don't know if he's gonna come to that conclusion later on, but this kind of opening is always seem to be the case. It's a good way to get people to keep watching.
the original, I found it to be a major step back in terms of design, presentation, and even
Presentation, really.
mechanically. I was really looking forward to Persona 3 Reload. I was eagerly anticipating how Atlus would update the original for modern audiences. However, what we ended up getting was a version of this classic title that lacks the spark and creative voice that made it so special to begin with. Again, Persona 3 Reload isn't a bad game, but I feel as though it's a bit of a misguided remake. And
So he said that, what did he say? Something to do with, he said something to do with, like, not, so is he implying that it's not a good modernized version of it for newer player? Is that what he said?
it's just that when compared to the original, I found it to be a major. The Persona 3 remake was pretty disappointing to me. Don't get me wrong, I liked the game well enough. It's just that when compared to the original, I found it to be a major step back in terms of design, presentation, and even mechanically. I was really looking forward to Persona 3 Reload. I was eagerly anticipating how Atlus would update the original for modern audiences.
So he was eager to see how Atlas would update the game for the modern audience.
However, what we ended up getting was a version of this classic title that lacks the spark and creative voice that made it so special to begin with.
So I don't think, so I would assume that he doesn't like the update.
Again, Persona 3 Reload isn't a bad game, but I feel as though it's a bit of a misguided remake. And yeah, that's pretty disappointing to say the least. So in today's video, we're gonna put these two games head to head and analyze them from top to bottom. It's why you came here. But before I begin, I think it's worth it to address the two most common defenses of this remake that people use to completely shut down any of these conversations. Number 1, the original game will always be there, so if you don't like the remake, then just play the old game. This line of thinking has always come off as a flimsy way to dismiss potential criticism. By that logic, Atlas could have done anything with the remake and you wouldn't be allowed to critique it. It's
Not necessary, in my opinion. Just because saying you could always play the old game doesn't mean that like you shouldn't critique it. But I guess some people do have that mindset, so I don't really think it's unfair for him to say so. But I think you could always say that like if you truly want to experience the old version, it's always there. I think it's not that bad of a thing to say. Yeah, and you can still criticize the modern version if you like. I think both can exist at the same time.
not even as if the original is easy to get a hold of anyways. To dismiss potential criticism. By that logic, Atlas could have done anything with the remake and you wouldn't be allowed to critique it. It's not even as if the original is easy to get a hold of anyways.
What? It's not as if the original is easy to get a hold with? Is that true? Can you just get it on... Is this game like... What original is he talking about? Like Fest, maybe? I guess Fest? Because can you get it on Steam? Persona 3 is on Steam, right? Not legally? It's not on Steam though? Also, you mean Fest, okay. I don't think... Okay, so... I don't think that's ever stopped people from playing Fest though. I think majority of people experience Fest that way. So if it is not legal, I don't think it really matters that much, to be honest. But then if you can... So if accessibility and legality is two separate topics, right? Something can be illegal, but really easy for people to experience, right? And then you can argue about risk and stuff like that. Do you have much risk for doing it that way? Right? Because one of the reasons that people, a case for emulator is that it's preserves something that you can't get anymore. Right? Like, but I don't think saying it's hard to obtain is entirely correct. Or sorry, hard to experience it. Hard to obtain original physically, definitely. If there's not on Steam, yeah, I think Fest is not on Steam, so I think that's true.
This isn't even like a Final Fantasy VII remake scenario, where if you don't like the new direction, the PS1 game is just readily available. Have you seen the prices of some of these games?
Okay. So just keep watching the video for a little bit, huh?
Number 2, you're just blinded by nostalgia. You only dislike parts of this game because it's different, not worse. I first played the original Persona 3 all the way back in 2014, not too long after I finished Persona 4. Believe it or not, I wasn't too hot on the game at the time. In fact, one of the first videos I made on this channel was a deep dive into my feelings on Persona 3. In case you need a reminder, I was fairly critical towards the game, and was very vocal about certain quirks I wasn't a fan of. However, over the years since then, I've replayed the game quite a few times, and my outlook has changed significantly. Aspects of Persona 3 that I originally saw as blemishes morphed into something a lot more positive. The unique quirks
Maybe he'll feel the same about Persona 3 Reload then. Like, I didn't like it now, and then a couple of years later, it's like pretty good. I'm not sure. But, you know, nostalgia bias is definitely a real thing. However, it's also might not affect him. I actually don't know, but it's just good to know that like we do have nostalgia bias. It's quite common. It might not affect him though.
Introduced and featured exclusively.
And as he's saying, right, like he doesn't. He says it wasn't very good when he was playing it, or he doesn't feel like it was good. Actually, I feel the same when I originally played this game. I actually didn't like it that much, to be honest. And I don't even understand the story, but partially I don't understand English at that time, or my English is very poor.
In Persona 3, lends this game a certain flavor that you can't find anywhere else in this franchise. Not to everyone's taste, but it's impossible to deny certain factors play a massive part in carving out Persona 3's core identity. Nostalgia has never been a deciding factor for me in any of my videos. Sure, sometimes I'll look at something from my younger years and will even reminisce on those memories, but I always make sure to put those innate biases aside and give my
Fair enough. I think he understands that it can happen, but I think he aware of it.
Honest thoughts through my current lens. Boiling down the critics of Persona 3 Reload to these nostalgia-blind fanboys of the original is just plain dishonest, especially when some of these critiques have plenty of merit if you're actually willing to hear them out. Of course, you don't have to agree with everything I'm about to say, nor am I trying to insinuate that I have some sort of authority of how you should feel about this game. If you played Persona 3 Reload and had a great time with it, then I'm happy for you. I hope you continue to enjoy it. But for me, this remake missed the mark in a lot of areas, and fails to recapture the spark of the classic title it shares a name with. But first, a little context as to how we ended up here.
There is some stuff that I don't like about this game as well, to be honest, but we'll see. This is not my video.
So picture this. You're a struggling game studio.
What does it say? Persona 3 need remake, right?
In the mid-2000s, and you just released your magnum opus JRPG. It's packed to the brim with high-budget cinematics, plenty of voice acting, and there's so much game here that it needs to be sold on 2 entire
Isn't it did Persona lose did Persona 3 lose identity? Did Persona lose its identity? What is my title? Sorry, what did I say? Does? Oh, I don't know. Oh, did Persona 3 lose its identity? And then you Persona like, isn't it? Did Persona lose? Also, like Persona as a whole.
PS2 discs. God damn. Sounds like a recipe for success. Too bad nobody bought it. Yes, for as ambitious as Atlus's Digital Devil Saga was on paper, the overall niche nature of the project all but secured the game was never gonna make it anywhere beyond cult classic status. The PlayStation 2 generation was pretty rough for Atlus. In a time when the cost of development was increasing and the competition was ramping up, the company struggled to find any real success financially. While this era is well regarded in terms of quality, it doesn't make up for the fact that none of their games were reaching the necessary numbers to continue their investment. So yeah, things weren't looking pretty good.
This is something that I learned really early. Well, not really early. It took me a long time. I learned it when I was doing YouTube stuff. Quality doesn't always necessarily mean success. If you make something really high in quality, but it's not in demand, it doesn't matter. So the thing with SMT game, I'm not really an expert. I need to play more SMT game, to be honest. But in general thing, the most general sense, SMT game are like a JRPG for pretty hardcore JRPG player. So the market of that is even more niche than general JRPG. When you make a game that's like really hard JRPG, I mean, it's not the hardest game, right? But most people would consider SMT to be hard. The market is even smaller.
Great for Atlus at the time, and by knowing this, it becomes easier to understand.
But yeah, it's a pretty good game. Well, at least I like Noctua.
And why Persona 3 ended up the way it was. Persona 3 is a game born from limitations, and with compromises comes creativity. When you don't have the biggest budget in the world, you need to get smart with how you allocate your resources. This is why the calendar system in Tartarus were such an effective idea from a development standpoint. It allowed for a smart reuse of environments, so that time could be spent on other aspects of the game. Social links exist not only as a method of providing the player with a constant stream of new content, but also as a way to demonstrate the game's main themes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I was about to add that part, but he already mentioned it. To be honest, I think Nam is I never watched that much of his video, but it seemed like he's pretty well-rounded. He seemed to getting information from a bunch of angles. He doesn't just talk about mechanic, because yeah, it does save time and cost because you can reuse stuff, and it does fit the game theme, because the game theme is make use of your time, right? Make the best use of your time. So having a calendar system and who you're gonna choose to hang out with is a really good thing for the theme. And it's something that I always interested in or care about when it comes to Persona 3. In fact, mostly my channel we talk about more story in the game mechanic, but yeah. As a Reload player, I don't agree with overall statement, but after watching, I can at least understand where he's coming from. I never watched his video, but yeah, he's sounded a reasonable person, or he seemed at least well-rounded, but I might have my mind change after the 1 hour. Let's keep going.
It's almost poetic in a way that, in the time where the company was suffering the most and was on the verge of closure, Atlus made a game about appreciating the time we have left while we still got it. The inevitability of death shouldn't be something to be feared. Rather, it's the ultimate motivator to live your life to the fullest.
I'm not sure if Atlas is actually struggling though, but because he didn't really show anything, he just say it happened. But I don't think people watching it care about that much. But usually when people make that kind of statement, I do kind of want to check it, but I'm not gonna check it right now. Obviously, you know, want to watch the video.
Finding a reason for living and developing a strong enough conviction to never back down, even in the darkest of times. That reason for living can come from anywhere, whether that be from the bonds you share with those around you, the loss of a loved one, or even the act of preserving someone
Did it lose? Okay, sorry, gotcha, yeah.
else's memory.
Let me change that later, okay?
Persona 3 has a deeply profound message that resonates closely with a lot of players, but the success of this game doesn't end there either. This game is packed to the brim with design choices that serve to reinvent the Persona franchise for a new era. It's got the sauce, if you will. The massive success of Persona 3 revitalized interest in the series after a long hiatus, and it's safe to say we all know the story from there. Persona has basically defined modern Atlus at this point, and a lot of that success stems from how much of an impact Persona 3 left when it came out. This game has been used as the basic framework for the series going forward, and while each subsequent title has attempted to innovate on that formula, there are some unique features still exclusive to this game that give it a sense of identity. Hell, compare this game to Persona 5, and while you can see glimpses of the familiar, at their core, they hold very different gameplay and narrative philosophies.
Different gameplay? Oof, that's a big one in my opinion. I mean, yeah, I'll see what he have to say first, but it's really hard to. You could say different gameplay, but he's like very different gameplay. I'm like, is it gonna be? I watched this video. I just like how he explained his stance and doesn't shit on people that like reload. Yeah, he probably doesn't want to do that, of course, especially because it's hard to, you know, go all in on like the game is garbage when the game is received pretty well, unless he just really dislike it and then he doesn't care how he being viewed by other people. But I'm sure he want to be viewed as a reasonable person. Well, I hope so.
And this is when the conversation about a potential remake sparked within the community. Let's not beat around the bush here. Persona 3 is a game from 2006. It's a little crusty around the edges, and doesn't offer the same amount of quality of life features that are in some of Atlus's latest games. If you're a newcomer to the series, or just don't have much experience with the genre in general, Persona 3 might be a little hard to get into, and I can imagine that being a little frustrating. While I can understand where they're coming from, I was never on board with the idea that this game needed a remake. To me,
first of all, I don't think it doesn't matter if it needed or something. I don't think anyone need anything. We just do stuff. Like, not everything. He might say that it's soon real actually, but I don't think we need to do anything. We just do them. Like for example, you play Persona 3 Reload or something like that, right? Or you play a certain video game. You might play Fortnite today, right? I don't think people are obligated to have like some sort of super good reason. You can just do it because you want to.
Persona 3 is a game deeply intertwined with the time frame it was released in, not just in terms of the aesthetic design, but also in terms of gameplay mechanics. The stuff that makes Persona 3 what it is stems from Atlus's situation when it came out, and by remaking the game from the ground up in 2024 vision, it runs the risk of potentially dampening that original voice. Not to say that those mechanics and designs can't be updated in a way that stays true to the original vision, but it's a slippery slope, especially when most of the original creatives aren't involved with the project. If you've been watching my videos for a bit now, then you might have noticed that I put a lot of emphasis on the idea of identity and legacy. I'm very passionate about this topic. I want creatives to be remembered for the hard
I don't know if you guys are using the play speed up, but I'm gonna do 1.25. It's easier for me to focus that way.
work they put into their projects and the stories that they attempt to tell. It's why I put in the effort to showcase games in the context of when they were originally released, and why I'm not exactly the biggest fan of the whole enhanced re-release shtick. Not to say that there aren't good ways of doing it, but most of the time, mainly from Atlus, it's not handled all too well. There's usually a bunch of quality of life improvements, new story content that doesn't mesh well with the classic game, and altered visuals that go against the intended mood. I wouldn't have too much of a problem with this if these newer versions were just alternate ways of experiencing these games, but the issue is that Atlus usually treats them as the new default, regardless if if the final product was worse or not. But that's not to say that I'm fully against the idea of games getting remakes at all, because there are good ways to do it. I'm personally more of a fan of when remakes try to do their own thing while being respectful to the original. The Resident Evil games come to mind when I think of this. They aren't attempting to invalidate the classic experience, rather they take the original idea and apply it in a different context. These two games stand heads and shoulders with each other. Just by looking at footage of both of them, you can find inherent value in eventually trying out both titles. Persona 3 Reload isn't trying to be that kind of remake. Reload strives to be the new definitive way to experience Persona 3, and in some ways,
That's true. From what I understand, if it's gonna be definitive edition, then it need FMC, right? I'm not 100% sure, but one of the things that people mentioned that I read before is that the reason that they don't have FMC is because they need to they need people to go back to play or buy Audible HD version. With that said, maybe in a couple years on the road, it would be a pretty dumb move. Not dumb move. It's gonna be smart move by them, but it's gonna look pretty bad if they make another Persona 3, like, you know, Persona 3 Golden or Persona 3 whatever, and then add like FMC. But I wouldn't be surprised. That's one thing that I don't think anybody ever lie about Atlas.
I believe it succeeds in accomplishing that, but in the areas where it counts, it fumbles the bag. Alright, no more dancing around it. Let's just start this shit. Definitive way to experience Persona 3, and in some ways, I believe it succeeds in accomplishing that, but in
Oh, okay. He said in some ways succeeded.
the areas where it counts, it fumbles the bag. Alright, no more dancing around it. Let's just start this shit.
Oh, that's the intro? Holy shit, okay. The good, the bad, and the dark hours.
In the words of its own
Nice.
developers, Persona 3 Reload strives to be a faithful remake, one that preserves the original vision of the classic title, but with some updates and changes.
This is true. I don't know if they used the word. Oh, maybe they did use the faithful remake, but for sure, because I followed the interview quite a bit, they did say something along the line.
Is to have it fit in more in line with what players expect out of a game released in 2024. What this means is that Persona 3 Reload has the same core story and structure as the original game. During the daytime, you live your life like a normal high school student. You make friends, join clubs, go on dates, study, the works really. However, once the moon rises up, it's time to jump into action. It's up to you and your friends to suit up and find out the origins behind the Dark Hour and how to permanently rid the world of it. Once every month, a full moon will occur, which signifies the appearance of an extremely dangerous shadow. And with the more of them defeated, the closer the characters get to accomplishing their goals. It's the exact same setup and formula used in the original game, even down to the social links you form and the stats you have to manage. It was a good formula back then, and it's just as good now. Though Reload does add a few bells and whistles into the mix to keep the experience feeling fresh. Persona 3 is a very simple game when compared to the sequels, mostly in regards to the activities available to the player when not dungeon crawling. With over half of your social links being available only during school days, and only 2 available at night, then there will be 1 or 2 points in the game where you'll find yourself without much to do. It becomes especially egregious during a max social link run. Winter vacation and the last bit of summer are the most common dry spots, that's for sure. To be fair, the lack of nighttime activities in the original game was in service of another mechanic, but I'll get into that later. The point is, OG P3's social calendar is a bit lacking compared to the later games. I know for a fact that a large portion of players who wanted a remake desired for more to do during the points of downtime. I personally never had that big of an issue with this, but I won't deny the opportunity of new content, even though it's a bit on the minimal side here. We got
There's a big downtime if you strictly follow the social link guy and stuff like that. If you play it normally, probably not. If you follow the social link guy, or you know what you need to do, I think the last few months, like maybe 2 or 3 months, is very empty because you already did all the social link, and then there's many social link that doesn't unlock until it hit a certain date, so you don't have anything to do. There's no point to do anything.
part-time jobs, alright, that's pretty cool to see. Elizabeth requests are much more encouraged, and you can even take on an unlimited amount at once now. The male party members now have faux social links that range in quality, but I'll be getting into that later. And there's much more to do at Iwatodai Dorm than previously, both by yourself and with your companions. The latter was the one I was really interested in seeing. It was also one of my biggest concerns.
Freaking
Have you ever heard of
Nakihiko.
the saying, "C's doesn't feel like friends"? This is a phrase that's been thrown around a lot, and it's a critique that I never got behind. The members of C's initially start off as cold and distant towards each other. They're more interested in furthering their desires rather than
I never heard that phrase before, but I'm sure he's mingle with the community way more than me. I don't try to mingle too much. I just gonna look from afar.
making new friends. Ken is obsessed with avenging his mother. Akihiko dedicates his life in a quest for power thanks to his fear of loss. Mitsuru is racked with guilt because of the Kirijo group's experiments, and so on. The members of SEES are, at first, self-serving characters, but as the story goes on and the struggles of the party members become more intertwined, they're able to grow closer and develop a genuine bond. This was a very deliberate decision to capture a specific mood. The members of SEES aren't like the Phantom Thieves or the investigation team in regards to their camaraderie. Part of me was a little worried that the extra events would trample on that idea too much. However, these are some pretty tasteful activities. You can tend to the rooftop gardens, watch some DVDs, and cook some meals. The most extravagant these events get are the group study sessions available about a week before tests, so you don't have to worry about them Persona 4 goldenifying everything. I like them. A nice bite-sized addition. Something that gives the player a little bit more to do while also exploring the more casual sides of the group. It feels very grounded and realistic, with the appropriate amount of space between the characters being left intact. The only issue I take has less to do with the new activities themselves, rather it's the rewards you get for doing them, and how they have an impact on the game's combat design. And it's here when things started to go downhill for me. So, it's no secret that the original Persona 3 isn't exactly the most beginner-friendly JRPG out there. It may not look like it from an outsider's perspective, but Persona 3 plays very differently from its two successors.
It's actually pretty hard, to be honest, or at least somewhat gonna feel unfair. Not as hard as SMT, but compared to Persona 5, it's so different. But I think that's why Persona 5 is more, and Persona 4 more, you know, successful. Well, first of all, it's stepping stone. It's actually, you know, Persona 3 is already a good game, so people is willing to try more. But Persona become like really big or like world level well known during Persona 5, and part of that is definitely to do with like they make the barrier of entrance much easier because the game is easier to get to. Like you don't have to be super good or like super care that much about team building or stuff like that to play it.
Personas 4 and 5 have very reactionary combat systems. They're games that put a large emphasis on in-the-moment strategy rather than methodical play. P5 even introduced a mechanic that lets you switch your playable character whenever you exploit a weakness. Persona 3, in comparison, is a much slower game. It has a combat system that asks you to take your time and properly plan ahead before committing to any strategy. Despite the surface-level similarities, these are two very different styles of turn-based combat when you really break it down, and their unique qualities are even further highlighted when looking at other aspects of the dungeon crawling. Persona 3 stands as the odd one out in the modern trilogy due to its unique approach to the dungeon crawling. While I can understand it not being to everyone's liking, it's undeniable that certain quirks play a very large part in carving out Persona 3's gameplay identity, and were monumental in expressing the ideas at the core of the experience. Persona 3 was the last time the franchise truly emphasized the dungeon crawling. For as much as I like the gameplay of Persona 4 and 5, the systems and design featured in 3 has slowly become more preferable to me over the years. This is probably the closest Persona will ever come to being a roguelike game. The way every piece of equipment comes with its own random bonus effects, how the party versatility allows for unique compositions, and also in the Guardians you have to fight every few floors. All of this plays a massive role in defining what Persona 3 is as an experience. However, I'll be the first to admit that the execution wasn't perfect. There were a few aspects of the original Persona 3
Is he really the first? I think a lot of people have a lot to complain about Persona 3.
game design that can be a little frustrating or have some sloppy execution, and in that sense, I agree that a remake could be a good
maybe he said he's not the first.
opportunity. A little first to admit that all of this plays a massive role in defining what Persona 3 is as an experience. However, I'll be the first to admit that
No way.
execution wasn't perfect. There were a few aspects of the original Persona 3's game design that can be a little frustrating or have some sloppy execution, and in that sense, I agree that a remake could be a good opportunity. You know, polish off some of the blemishes so that the experience can reach its full potential. However, Reload instead opts to change the gameplay in rather significant ways, to the point where the experience is a lot closer to Persona 5 than it is to the game it's trying to remake. Combat in Persona 3 Reload is about what you would expect from the franchise in a post-P5 world. You build a team of 4 party members and exploit weaknesses.
Thanks for title change. No, thanks for letting me know. My English is not the best, but I try my best. It's crazy because I actually live overseas for like 10 years, but there's some stuff that, you know, I just never transfer over, but I'm trying to do my best. Thanks.
To score all-out attacks. It's the same framework that's been in place since the original Persona 3, so I won't bore you with the details. Instead, I'll just cover the differences. Brought over from Persona 5 is the Baton Pass system, now dubbed Shifting. Whenever you exploit an enemy's weakness, you're given the opportunity to pass your turn to another party member so you can continue the chain. It was a great system in P5, and it's just as useful here. And it's thankfully a little bit better balanced this time. The bonus effects that were automatically applied in P5 have now been made into passives that need to be equipped on a persona to take effect. Really, this is how it should have been from the start. It rewards you for creating builds around the mechanic, but asks you to give up some valuable valuable skill slots to get the most out of it. However, even this might be a bit too much. Shifting is at its most balanced when all you're allowed to do is pass your turn to another party member, and if the mechanic is going to be featured in the franchise going forward, then it really doesn't need to be anything more than this. Having access to essentially free buffs whenever you pass to another party member is just too much, and it's impossible to balance without making every fight a tedious chore to get through. Some other new features to this game.
So it's what he's saying is true, but I don't think it's bad. It's bad for him, and you fair to don't like you fair. It's fair, it's fair, or you're allowed to don't like how things are. But I think Persona is really different than SMT now. It's not like a game that's trying to be really, thoughtful when it's come to mechanic. As in, like, you don't have that feeling. I don't know how to explain it, but the most simple way to me to explain it. But like, do you ever play like really hard game like Dark Soul or the Soul game? It's kind of annoying, but then when you learn the boss pattern or you learn the mechanic and then you obey it, you get rewarded a lot. Well, I guess the good example is SMT game, right? Persona is moving away from that because only really JRPG enthusiastic is the one that really enjoy that kind of stuff. But from normal people perspective, they want more alternative, stupid way. I'm gonna use the word stupid because it's not bad, but it's kind of stupid. To beat the game. Funny, there's this story recently. I don't want to stray too far from the real, but I'll do it really fast. So there's this funny story that happened recently in SMT5 when Jens replayed SMT5. When Jens, there's like this boss named Nama. She showed up really early, and some people were complaining. Because there's a lot of new people trying the game, right? But yeah, some people complaining that it's impossible to beat her. It's impossible. And they were just like, oh, I can't beat this. She do too much damage. I don't do that much damage to her. And then their solution is just like, so what? I have to grind 20 level to beat her? That's actually how average, like, general people think when they play JRPG. It's not like, oh, what kind of team build I have to do like that. They just, oh, I can't beat it, I gotta go grinding, right? So that's usually how most people play this kind of game. They're gonna have like a Pokemon mindset. In Pokemon, right, when you can't beat the gym, the smart way is to go find a Pokemon that have like, enemy weakness, right? But most people, they'll just be like, I'll just grind my starter like 5 level up and I'll try again. That's how casual JRPG player play. So that's why they change it to kind of more relaxing. Additionally, talking about the shift, I like the way that they named the mechanic shift, because shift is actually a little bit related to the theme of the Persona 3, because death is not always just the end. It's just a starting for a new thing. That's why you're shifting to the next thing.
Are the personality traits and theurgies. So this is Atlus's way of trying to further differentiate party members beyond what skills they're rocking. Personality traits are sort of like persona traits from P5R, but now they're limited exclusively to the character itself rather than the persona. Personality traits are unlocked and upgraded through the dorm activities that I mentioned earlier. And trust me, you should make unlocking these your priority. While personality traits range in effect
So true, they're so strong.
and utility, almost all of them are insanely good and can be borderline game-breaking. Yukari's trait makes her healing magic cost almost nothing. Mitsuru's increases the critical hit rate of your party whenever an enemy has an ailment. Junfei just lands more critical hits.
Oh yeah, sorry, forgot to mention. But what I'm trying to say is that Persona, they're moving away from a thoughtful, rewarding feeling mechanic, if you obey a mechanic game, to just generally feel good. When you play Persona 5, it just feel good. Everything looks so cool, and even you don't obey by the stuff, when you can still go through the game, you feel good doing it. So they're trying to get more casual people to play, right? So and it's working.
And they deal more damage.
I spent 3 hours in the Quidditch 5, love every moment. I beat it the first try, but I play on normal mode though, so that might be the thing. But usually I play the game in normal mode. Unless it's absurdly easy, then I will switch to harder. Because I like the balance between, I just want some challenge, but I'm mostly interested about the story. So if it's not too easy, I will play on normal most of the time.
damage, and Akihiko's is just absurd. While the text might make it seem kind of bad initially, it's actually one of the best ones.
But it's nice you say you love every moment of it. That's the thing, right? Some bosses fight SMT is frustrated, but when you finally able to figure it out, like you team build a little bit, you shake their weaknesses, it feel rewarded. It does feel rewarded. Just like how you take so long to beat that dumbass Dark Soul boss. I don't play Dark Soul, but I'm assuming that's the thing, okay? And then you beat it. It's just like, damn, that feel good. That just feel really good. But Persona barely even have that, bottle up stress and then it release. It doesn't really have that. It just kind of feel like a flat lie, feel good.
In the game.
Persona 5. Persona going forward, I guess.
Applied to him. So in a game all about buffing and debuffing, Akihiko's skill just makes buffs objectively better to use on him. It's not a small increase either. Akihiko becomes a monster when fully buffed, and the other members aren't that far
I used to think this ability is garbage, but no, he's right. It's pretty OP.
behind him thanks to what they bring to the table, whether that be with their revamped skill selection or with one of their game-breaking theurgies. So theurgies are the new flavor of the week. Think of them like limit breaks from Final Fantasy, but a hell of a lot more exploitable. Theurgies come in a few shapes and sizes, though a vast majority of them focus on dealing damage. I can't quite say that I'm too big of a fan of these. Theurgies deal way too much damage and are far too exploitable for their own good. On top of being able to basically one-shot every random encounter, theurgies also pierce through resistances. But the thing is, they still technically count as elemental damage, so you can actually exploit weaknesses off of—
I'm not sure if it's true in Merciless. I wonder if you play on Merciless. That's an option, but maybe he's saying Merciless is already easy because it just, I think in Persona it's just scaling, so it just gives the enemy more stat, but mechanic are the same.
Of a theurgy attack. This, combined with not having any cost, makes theurgies a safe option 100% of the time. Don't know what this boss is weak against? No problem. Just pop a theurgy and have it recorded for free, and get in some good damage to boot.
That's a good design, by the way. But he's not wrong in terms of like it's kind of boring. But from use the kind of like super move that you have to build up, I actually in it probably doesn't matter, but I was in the game design industry for a little bit. I just do some stupid ass phone game, but it doesn't really matter. But a kind of stuff that you have to build up, like a kind of like super attack move, if you make it like really situational, it's annoying to average player. Imagine it takes time to build this shit up and then you can't use it against this boss, It's kind of annoying. But no, but from the angle where he's just like, oh, it's a little bit kind of plain that it does, it's true. But I think overall it's make everybody feel better.
Might think it's a waste, but don't worry. Theurgies can charge insanely quickly. While the party member will gain a small amount of their theurgy meter,
really quickly, I mean, I don't think it's super long, but it does take time to charge.
whenever they summon a persona, each character also has a special method to make them charge faster. It usually relates to their playstyle.
Didn't he just doesn't it just show like how fast it go up there?
Theurgies can charge insanely quickly. While the party member will gain a small amount of their theurgy meter whenever they summon a persona, each character also has a special method to make them charge faster. It usually relates to their playstyle.
I'm not.
Gains theurgy whenever
yeah, I don't really see it. I guess he didn't show the bar.
And Mitsuru gains some when she lands an ailment, which I thought was pretty funny. The point is, theurgies are very easy to fill up, and depending on the character, you can get a full gauge in as little as 3 turns, and that's quite frankly insane considering the ridiculous shit you can do with these. Enter a boss fight with a maxo party, and you can effortlessly take it down just by spamming your super attacks. Most Tartarus bosses don't stand a chance against this strategy, but if you're really afraid of dying, put Ken on your team. His first theurgy isn't that great, but his second one is probably the best one in the game. Not only does it fully heal the party, but he also revives any dead members and applies both Tetrakarn and Makarakarn. Combine this with his extremely generous recharge rate, and with Ken in your party, you're not dying anytime soon.
I actually comment on this when I was playing, not because it's broken, but I actually like, oh wow, shit, I actually put Ken in my party now, because in the original, he's so like useless. Or either that I don't know how to use him, which properly maybe, but yeah, I'm like, well, there's a reason to use Ken, there's a reason to use Koromaru now, it's kind of nice.
Theurgies are meant to be an evolution of Persona 5's Showtime attacks, a mechanic that I'm also not too big of a fan of. While I appreciate the attempt to make it a more controllable and versatile tool.
Clearly he's a more, happy birthday, bro, thank you. Clearly he's a more, you know, JRPG enthusiastic, and I can really see that he's building a lot of the claim with that in mind. He built a lot of the claim on this video with that in mind. And yeah, again, it's a fair text. I do agree with him in the beginning where it's stupid to shut people opinion off entirely.
tool, I don't think this type of mechanic meshes well with this game. This is funny to say because the original Persona 3 felt very considered when it came to its core mechanics. Whether you like it or not, the tactics from the PS2 version plays a large part in that game's identity, not just because the gameplay was designed around using the AI, but because the mechanic is used to help express the game's core message. This is something that the director of the original, Katsura Hashino, even mentioned in interviews.
Yes, it would have been
This is actually true. Well, I guess I'll just let him finish. But yeah, this is actually true. I read about this.
wrong. For this game, there are a lot of RPGs out there where you can control every aspect of your party members, including what kind of underwear they're wearing. But because we wanted the player to relate to the hero more than any other character in Persona 3, we wanted the other characters to feel like other people.
Something that the original Persona
Oh, the one I read are not exactly this phrase, but it's something to do with like the big theme of the persona is also a trust that you have and the bond that you have with your friend. So that's why you're not able to control your friends, right? But I think this is a strong case against it doesn't matter that it loses its identity or not. Because yeah, like at the end of the day, some mechanic, while sound poetic, at the end of the day, if it doesn't feel good to use enough, right? People will not play it. You can make a Persona 3 or Persona game really poetic or really themic game, but it would feel like people are getting strangled when they were playing it. They're just not gonna play it. You can make that game, but then there'll be less people playing it, right? Like probably now I'm gonna play it. Like people who are more enthusiastic about JRPG will play it, but you will have less people to play it. So for example, I think if Persona 5 doesn't happen and the game doesn't become as casual as it is, I think we might not even have Persona 3 Reload. We might not even have further Persona game because that game brings so many people into the Persona thing, and that can be a good and a bad thing. It's good as in like you're gonna have more Persona game, but now it's not the Persona game that you remember it to be, right? But and then you have like those funny. You get more of this funny like Reddit posts by the new people coming into the game. Facts, right?
Persona 3 worked to emphasize was the individuality of the party members. A lot of effort was placed into making the other members of SEES feel like real people, not just video game companions. They had lives outside of the main character, and their character arcs were handled on their own terms.
This is the funny part. I always find it's funny. It's actually kind of mean, but I always make a joke, this super mean joke. Maybe it's not that mean. I think it's actually funny. But some people say that like they don't like Persona 3 Reload now because it's just like less realistic. Because yeah, for example, well, original, you can't control your party, right? Even fast, it's become less realistic and stuff like that too, right? I'm like, bro, if the game is realistic, Yukari wouldn't even talk to you, bro. She'll just go talk to her friend and never talk to you. You'll just go to school and then sit in your little corner, go back home and sleep. And then when you talk to her, there won't be any option. You can't see it. But she's probably not going to talk to you to begin with.
Individualism.
While the AI isn't as complex as the original, I think Reload does a fine job of adding other mechanics that do make each person feel like an individual. Oh, feel free to share. Well, that, you know, the part where you hang out with them in the movie, their study part, and the DOG and the trade, I think if those were the part that you're referring to, I actually do agree. They make them feel more unique to me as well. But then now I'm gonna say is make it too easy because you know, again, he's more enthusiastic JRPG type person, which is okay. That's fair.
In the core combat through the tactics system, rather than directly controlling your party members, you instead assign the AI roles to follow through the tactics menu. The main goal of this system was to allow the party members to truly shine on their own, while also demonstrating their camaraderie. As their bond grows throughout the story, the characters learn how to work better as a team in the gameplay. The tactics system was vital to demonstrating this idea, and it blows my mind to see the way people talk about this mechanic. Some people act like this mechanic was a genuine mistake, and the mere idea of it was flawed, and that sucks to see. I get that the tactics menu isn't perfect in the original game, but to act like it's completely unusable is just disingenuous.
But you said never.
I know.
No, I agree with him, but it's really easy point to attack, I guess. So here's the thing. But no, I think it's still fair because I do it too. Maybe it's not fair. Maybe I should change the way I approach. But it's easy to attack the most extreme people because they're extreme, obviously. If you talk to a reasonable people, they're not gonna say it's unusable. They're just gonna say it's uncomfortable. But yeah, I'm sure because we're in the internet, there's like extreme people that say, I can't play it because of, you know, but yeah.
Yeah, I like the tactics system in Persona 3 now. I was one of those people that used to really dislike the tactics system.
But I agree with him. If you, yeah, like, it's not unusable, just kind of uncomfortable.
I vividly remember struggling with it a lot on my first playthrough of the game. However, as the years have gone on and I've played through Persona 3 more and more, I've grown to appreciate this unique approach to combat, which is why it sucks to see the tactic system get completely gutted in future games. Persona 4, in response to the feedback from P3, added
That's the thing. I wonder if they would just keep it in. Wait, is it really gone? I don't remember. I guess it's gone. I'm just gonna take his word for it. I'm too lazy to check. But yeah, I mean, if it's in the game, in some game you can turn it on and off. I don't know if they. Yeah, I'm just gonna take his word for it because I want to keep
direct
watching.
commands while keeping the AI settings as an option. This would have been a nice compromise, but the issue is that the AI is completely unusable now, and we're missing more than half of the tactics. I'm not sure what happened.
AI is unusable now because it doesn't exist. Sorry, let me rewatch that.
Which is why it sucks to see the tactic system get completely gutted in future games. Persona 4, in response to the feedback from P3, added direct commands while keeping the AI settings as an option. This would have been a nice compromise, but the issue is that the AI is completely unusable now, and we're missing more than half of the tactics. I'm not sure what happened in between games, but Persona 4's
unusable now, so it still exists, it's just bad and missing half the tactic. Okay.
It was a complete downgrade from Persona 3's, and unfortunately, it's been like this ever since. It sucks to see such a novel idea get completely shelved after the first attempt. And while
yeah, the thing is though, they're making Persona for the people. So majority of people, or at least to their understanding, don't like it. That's why they remove it. They can keep it in, I guess, but that's just a little bit extra cost. Actually, I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna be extra cost. I just don't know how much or too bothersome to keep them.
I don't mind that direct commands became the standard, the tactics menu had so much potential. If you were to ask me, Persona 3 Reload should have put in the effort to preserve the tactics system. Regardless as to whether or not you'd use it yourself, the tactics system is a very important part of Persona 3's identity, and it should stand to reason that a remake should preserve that, right? But no.
Important to identity. I can probably agree with that, but yeah, I guess my conclusion right now is still like it doesn't matter if it loses part of its identity.
Persona 3 Reload doesn't do that. The tactics menu exists, that's for sure, but the AI
so it does exist.
Isn't anywhere near close to what we had in the original game. Fuck, it's even a downgrade from Persona 5's AI, because at least there the Phantom Thieves would baton pass. I guess C's didn't get the memo since I never saw them use the shift mechanic, which, yeah, is a pretty big problem. And don't even get me started on the types of skills these chuckleheads will use. The AI in Reload is what people think the AI was like back in the PS2 game. All of the nuanced decision making that came with the old system was gutted. There's no way to see the entire turn cycle anymore, just whoever will be acting next. The more situational commands that allowed for creative play were removed, and the skills that the AI prioritized using honestly feel completely random. It's a complete downgrade from what we had before, and it's not at all worth using anymore.
I wonder if he played with the. I guess he doesn't play with it because he says it's unusable. But it would be interesting if he actually played trying to. I would assume he tried to use the AI.
Something that I want people to understand is that this isn't a matter of direct control versus AI party members. Quite frankly, I really don't give a shit if direct commands is offered as an option for those who really just want to control their party. However, what I don't get is why people act like it's impossible to have both. Like, it can either be one or the other, apparently. Because I've played games that have both.
Again, I guess he's attacking the extremists, which, to be honest, I feel like he's probably mingle of the community way more. When I play this game and then you guys come to talk to me about stuff, I don't think any of you are being extreme. Like, nobody say like this crazy shit. But I guess I'm assuming he's mingle of the community way more than me. I'm like, people say this thing or these thing, okay.
So recently I played through Dragon Quest VIII in my free time and I had a lot of fun with it. Something that I was surprised to see was that the game featured its own tactics menu on top of having direct party control. So out of curiosity, I ended up playing through nearly the entire game with it, and yeah, it worked great. The AI was able to easily determine what skills need to be used when, and there were even plenty of settings to adjust the AI how I see fit. And unlike Reload, the AI is smart enough to use the game's brand new mechanic. I just don't understand how games that came out nearly 20 years earlier completely mog this one with their AI settings. One of them being the game that they're trying to remake. Fuck, that's brutal. I think that
I can explain it. They probably give less of a care about it because it's a feature that not enough people wanted to use. That's probably why. It's not like because they cannot do it. It's just they choose not to put in that much effort into it. Which if I take everything he said in consideration, yeah, it's gonna sucks if you're the person who want to use the AI.
this discussion can easily lead into another topic that I don't really see many people talking about. Persona 3 Reload has this really bad habit where instead of
I stay away from crazy people in the community. Amen, bro.
taking an old idea and improving on it. It's instead scrapped in favor for something else completely, no matter how unnecessary it might be. I already mentioned it, but the original Persona 3 was very considered in what mechanics the developers thought were necessary. Individuality was a big aspect of the party members, but the same is also true for the main character. It's up to the player to decide how they want to spend their free time, level up the social links you desire, take on the personas that you want others to see, and of course, pick which weapon you want him to specialize in. In Persona 3 and Persona 3 FES only, the main character is able to wield multiple types of weapons, ranging from swords, bows, axes, spears, and boxing gloves. Basically, anything is on the table except for Koromaru's knives and Aigis' firearms. Unfortunately, in Reload, this feature didn't make the cut, and now the protagonist is stuck to using only one-handed swords. While this might not seem to be that big of a deal if you've only ever played the remake, I'm gonna argue why this is actually a pretty substantial loss.
Can't wait to hear this because I like the multiple weapon change, but I want to see why. I want to see how he's gonna make it like so important.
Persona 3 handles the physical element very differently than the later games do. Instead of having one physical element, it's instead divided up into 3 types of physical damage: slash, strike, and pierce. Also, unlike P4 and 5, characters don't have innate access to all types of physical damage without the use of skills. However, since the main character is able to equip every type of weapon, you're able to cover any weak points in your composition. But choosing which weapon you want to use requires more thought than just attack type, since every weapon class varies in damage, accuracy, and stumble rates. Sure, you won't be dealing the most amount of damage with boxing gloves, but you'll be landing your attacks more often than normal. Stumbling isn't a problem with bows, but they have a lower than average accuracy. There's a lot of consideration that needs to go into the type of weapon you equip, and allows for every dungeon pickup to stay fresh and exciting. If I pick up a two-handed sword, I don't have to worry about using Junpei in my party because I can still make use of it myself. Something you also need to consider when picking a weapon is how it handles in the overworld. Every weapon has different attack speed, recovery time, and length. Snipe enemies from afar with a bow, or get up close and personal so you can throw out some lightning quick jabs. Maybe a weapon that's good for combat is a little unruly to use in the overworld. I love using the elemental weapons with the main character, but I'm gonna have to get used to how that class of weapon handles whether I like it or not. As far as I can tell, Persona 3 was the first game in the franchise to have encounters on the overworld instead of traditional random encounters, so it's insane to see how much thought went into this system, and it's an excellent source of constant, meaningful decision-making on the player's end. Reload opts to not include this feature in the game, and the dungeon crawling feels a lot more bare as a result. I don't get the same rush I did from finding weapons in chests anymore, since I already know it's going to be a direct upgrade for whatever character it's meant for. I've had people tell me that they don't care that multiple weapon types are gone in Persona 3 Reload, and it's fine for them to have that opinion, but I have to wonder, why do you want a more simplified game if it doesn't result in a better one? However,
I stay away from, oh sorry, credit where credit is due. He said the original very well. Yeah, I mean, I think he think a lot about this kind of stuff, and you can really hear the way that when he explaining stuff. But yeah, there's some stuff that, you know, at the end of the day, I think it's probably more opinion than factual. As in, like, oh, sorry, that's not true. I don't know how to. I'm trying to say it in like a clear way or not convoluted way. I'm trying to say it because what he said, there is some factual, a lot of facts in it, because that's how it is. I'm trying to say that like, it's probably doesn't matter. Yeah, it probably doesn't matter, and you know. What did he just say? Like, what did he just say just now? Something.
Into this system, and it's an excellent source of constant, meaningful decision-making on the player's end. Reload opts to not include this feature in the game, and the dungeon crawling feels a lot more bare as a result. I don't get the same rush I did from finding weapons in chests anymore, since I already know it's going to be a direct upgrade for whatever character it's meant for. I've had people tell me that they don't care that multiple weapon types are gone in Persona 3 Reload, and it's fine for them to have that opinion, but I have to wonder, why do you want a more simplified game if it doesn't result in a better one?
Because the game being simple or complex doesn't mean it's better or worse. That's the thing. That's not a good argument, unless he's gonna say more about it. Just saying the game is more simple doesn't mean it's bad. Saying the game is complex doesn't mean it's bad. Saying that like, oh, you're feeling more, there's this mechanic you have to fulfill to feel rewarded doesn't mean it's bad or good. The reason that is, I probably don't have to repeat my point. It's just more accessible to a lot of people, because a lot of people that play the game or come into the game now are the people that, you know, that people who play Pokemon in story mode and then, oh shit, I can't beat this. I'm just gonna go grind for a little bit and then come back. Those were the people that they're trying to get more in. It's not the enthusiastic JRPG people anymore. It is better or not depend on the player. I usually stuck to the sword. If it's better or not depend on the player, I usually stuck to the sword when I play the original, so this change was non-factor to me. Yeah, that's the thing. Like average people, they like flexibility. They like flexibility. Now, it'd be nice if I can pick other weapon just for the sake of it. But literally making it a dungeon where like I will be so fucked if I don't use an axe. That will annoy casual player. You can see people playing SMT, like I was mentioned, they already can beat fucking Nama, and all you gotta do is just scan her and use physical attack. You don't even have to scan her, to be honest. Just try attack normally once. Then you'll know that that's how you beat her. But no, people already complain about that, right? Because Persona is different now. They're not going for enthusiastic JRPG people. They're going for casual JRPG people. That's the reason. Something that's simple doesn't mean it's bad. Something that complex doesn't mean it's bad or good. You need to elaborate more. I agree with this, but I think that also make the party member to use a lot more crucial since you're limited to one sword. You need to make sure your party is able to provide all 3 physical attack. That's not entirely true unless you run out of MP or SP that often. Because what he's trying to say is that like, because he even say that like, oh, you can access those ability without going into skill, right? So skill exists. That's why they don't need it. But I still think it will add a flavor. So like, I would just say that like it's nice if they have it. Kind of like what he said about the AI. That's how I feel about it. Like it's nice if they have it. That's about how I feel about it. But yeah, like people want more option when it comes to progressing the game. They want different way to actually progress it rather than you have to obey by the mechanic really hard. I only talk about general casual people, by the way. If you're JRPG enthusiastic, you will want more of this kind of stuff. Reload is a lot stronger in physical attack. Okay.
However, that's just the tip of the iceberg, because there's a lot more mechanics that Reload either outright removes or makes significantly simpler and lamer. The fatigue system has been
simpler and lamers. I mean, he's probably not going to explain that. Again, simple doesn't mean it's bad.
Removed, and in its place are the Twilight Fragments. These are a good idea in theory.
Imagine if I add more stuff, right? I could just, because here's the thing that we have. There's some term that we have bias toward. If you hear the word simple, right? You're like, that sounds kind of shit. But why though? Like think about it, like, why though? And think about if complex mean better, what if I add more stuff? What if I'm like, oh, now there's like every skill have their own resources. You can only use it a certain time, and then it's only work against a certain single enemy in the game. Now I mean more complex, right? Is that good or? It's not, right? Something being simple, something being complex doesn't mean it's good or bad. You have to elaborate. But the word simple, when people hear it, it's like not good.
But in practice are almost completely pointless. Twilight Fragments are essentially your dark hour currency. You can either spend fragments to open up locked chests, or you can use them on the first floor clock.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention, I actually agree with him that the weapon pickup thing is a little bit boring because there's not much point to go back to the older weapon. The moment I get the new weapon, I just upgrade it, and then, I don't really think about it too much. I can agree that it's kind of boring, but again, I also not sure. Maybe average people prefer that way. I'm not sure.
Fully restore your party's HP and SP. In theory, Twilight Fragments should offer some interesting decision making, but in practice, the choice just sort of falls flat. You're just
so agree, man. This box is, in my opinion, are not well designed because they don't give a specific thing. I think some box does give specific thing like weapon, but most of them are random. And then at one point, I sort of stopped like wanting to open them. When I first played, I go to every single of this box and I think about like, oh, should I use my fragment on it or not? But sometimes I open it, I'm like, what a freaking waste of time. And eventually I just gonna stop opening them.
Showered with Twilight Fragments just for doing a few social links. I always had more than enough Twilight Fragments to get by, even after opening every locked chest I saw. I managed to clear out every block of Tartarus on the first night without even breaking a sweat. The fatigue system in the original game wasn't perfect, but I don't think that it should have been trashed entirely because it was an interesting way of gatekeeping players from rushing through all of the content in one sitting. The reason why Persona 3 doesn't have a whole lot of nighttime activities is because Tartarus is something that's meant to be tackled at your own pace. The fatigue system was interesting because it forced you to properly plan when you wanted to visit Tartarus. Being tired and combat is a massive penalty since you take more damage and deal less damage. If a party member becomes tired in Tartarus, they'll leave for the night when you go back to the first floor. It might not be the best idea to venture out without the usual team, but at the same time, maybe the backup members might be a better option right now. The system was far from perfect, and it's not too hard to think of ways it could be improved. I think adding a way to properly track when a party member is about to become tired would improve the system greatly. However, instead of fleshing out and expanding on the idea, Reload instead gets rid of it for something that isn't that much of an improvement. In some cases, I'd argue that the replacement is a lot worse too. Nearly every mechanic that required some level of forethought or risk from the player has been either dumbed down or has had all of its edges sanded off. Fuka's Oracle skill has been made into a super ultimate move that buffs the whole party and
What is it replaced by? Sorry. What's it replaced by?
gets rid of it for something that isn't that much of an improvement. I think adding a way to properly track when a party member is about to become tired would improve the system greatly. However, instead of fleshing out and expanding on the idea, Reload instead gets rid of it for something that isn't that much of an improvement.
Get rid of it for something that's also not entire. Okay, sorry. It sounds to me like something is replace it, but I guess he just say it like they just get rid of it.
In some cases, I'd argue that the replacement is a lot worse too.
Okay, he does use the word replacement, yeah, but I don't know what it's replaced. I think they just get rid of it, right?
Nearly every mechanic that required some level of forethought or risk from the player has been either dumbed down or has had all of its edges sanded off. Fuka's Oracle skill has been made into a super ultimate move that buffs the whole party and basically trivializes every fight now. In the original game, it was this interesting roulette wheel that could either be helpful or harmful depending on your luck. It was a real last-ditch gamble you only take when you're out of options, and it felt super satisfying when it worked in your favor. Now, all of the negative effects are gone, so Oracle just becomes the instant win button. Get free party-wide buffs at the press of a button. Or how about restoring all of your SP just to kick Twilight fragments while they're already down? Even Orgia mode suffers from this. What was once a tool always at your disposal is now locked behind Theurgy and comes with a high damaging attack, making it
I don't use DUG. I don't use or gear at all in the original.
sort of overkill. God, fusion spells are way less interesting now. Just like every old mechanic brought back in this game, the fusion spells act as the protagonist's Theurgy moves. However, all of the restrictions that made the mechanic interesting are removed. Instead of needing to have the correct personas equipped, fusion spells instead work off of the personas registered in your compendium. Another thing to keep in mind is that since this is a Theurgy skill and not a normal attack, fusion spells no longer cost any resources. By lifting the restrictions that used to be in place, fusion spells lose a lot of their appeal. In the original game, fusion spells felt almost otherworldly. Due to the specific conditions that need to be met, these skills truly do feel like a hidden power. This is why most of them don't play by the same rules as regular attacks. Sure, the damage is good, but the main appeal are those bonus effects. Inflict status ailments on the enemy team, fully buff one party member, a spell where you don't even know what's going to happen. Fusion spells in the original game were
People use that one?
good, but they were situational and had some pretty strict requirements. You had to equip a persona that might not be all too great anymore. So is the spell worth the potential risk? Persona 3 Reload removes all of that and just lets you pick whatever fusion spells you have unlocked. It gets the job done, I guess, but it sort of removes all of the magic behind the mechanic. Also, not a fan of how most of these spells are just the same thing but scale up in damage. If they were going to bring back fusion spells like this, they should have brought over the more unique ones instead. We already have a bunch of Theurgies that deal damage, so it would work well to spice things up. Do we really need 5 of the 7 fusion spells to be focused on dealing damage? Especially since I'm only going to be picking the one that deals the most amount of damage anyways? It would have been so much better if some of these spells only came with their secondary effects like in the original game. Do I want to deal medium almighty damage to all enemies? Not really. But a spell that has a high chance of knocking down all enemies at the cost of dealing no damage? Sign me up. However, it would be disingenuous for me not to mention that there are 2 fusion spells that take on more supportive roles, and these are easily the most fun ones to use in the game. Cadenza restores a large chunk of HP to the party and applies agility buffs, classic stuff. And Best Friends allows you to put both charge and concentrate on any party member. I'm a much bigger fan of these more situational skills since they prove to be the most balanced. Good in some scenarios, but not good in every scenario. And every fusion spell should have followed this philosophy, at least in regards to keeping it as a Theurgy exclusive mechanic. The original game does offer some high damaging attacks.
True, to be honest. I actually do agree with this point to quite a big extent, where the medium skill, so it's the same with the weapon. So it's a little bit boring when something replaces something entirely. But it depends on the thing. So for example, when I get a stronger persona, I don't use a weaker one anymore. It's okay because they're like, they have some other thing on top of them, right? They're not just one thing. But yeah, like what he's saying, the moment that you have a stronger almighty attack, like why would you use the weaker one? You know, why would you use a weaker one? And in the normal skill, it makes sense. But yeah, for stuff like the DOG fusion spell, it'll be nice if they put more thought into it to make it more interesting. That's definitely an area they could work on.
Through its fusion spells. However, even though they have specific requirements, the skills themselves still behave like every other attack. Elemental affinity was still taken into account. You can't use a fire-based spell like Ardenari on an enemy that blocks said element and still expect results. I get that this sounds like very basic shit, and I would agree, but for some reason, Reload felt the need to change this very deliberate decision. All of the spice is gone, and it's so much more lame now. The common trope I noticed with all the changes Reload makes to the combat is that it's done to simplify the game rather than to be a legitimate improvement. The way this is accomplished is by minimizing the risks, but maximizing the reward. Every mechanic that featured any potential risk on the player's end has been sanded off to the point where it may as well just be a new mechanic entirely. I mean, if you squint your eyes hard enough, it's kind of like the old game, but without all the stuff that made it cool or interesting to begin with. I already know that a lot of people are rolling their eyes at what I'm saying, so I should make it clear that I have nothing against a remake updating old mechanics, or hell, even adding brand new ones. However, if you're going to start making changes to the foundation, then it needs to be A, an improvement.
I don't entirely. Probably there's people rolling their eyes. There's some stuff that you know, when I hear him first say it, I'm like, I mean, after I listen to it, I'm like, oh. But yeah, there is some stuff that I just do think that they still make the right choice to get more people to play the game. Because again, the point is not to make, you know, hard or like, you know, really thoughtful JRPG anymore. They just want simple JRPG that accessible to majority of people. But there's definitely a lot of stuff that he mentioned that I think, yeah, they can still do what I just said, but still improve and make the game more interesting. DOG are kind of like Magasuhi's skill. I'm always gonna use the critical one, just like I always gonna. That's so true about the Magasuhi skill too. It's the critical one is too good. That's the thing. I think for that game, there's more argument for it because their audiences that they're going for, you know, the people who are more into like difficult or more thoughtful JRPG. But yeah, me too. I use critical one like 99% of the time.
And B,
and even Vengeance, they already make the game easier. I actually feel like Vengeance is I don't know. I don't finish it yet, so I could change my mind. I played 12. I'm about 12 hours in, so I'm at like So I just finished Lamu. But I feel like it's such a good game to as a bridge of like, you know, people who are into Persona and the people who are like really enthusiastic JRPG. It's like in between where like it's hard on normal, but it's not that hard. It's hard, but like as long as you obey what the game wants you to do and just think a little bit, just not a lot, just a little bit. So like use spyglasses, you know, do stuff. Then oh, this enemy they're gonna use wind attack. Just have one dude that absorb wind in your team. You're fine most of the time. Yeah, most of the time in the Vengeance version. In normal SMT5, you have to think it a little bit more, and it's more frustrated. But I think SMT5 Vengeance is pretty good bridge between getting people into a more enthusiastic, you know, JRPG niche. I can understand the game is really easy, play on normal. However, I feel that this game's difficulty is not as baby as people say it is. This one, Persona 3 Reload or SMT Vengeance.
feel like a natural addition. The Resident Evil 4 remake is a good example of this.
3R? It's easier. Oh, sorry, no. It's not as easy as P5R. P5R is really easy. P5, I think they already did what he's proposing, but not to the scale that he liked. So, you know, for example, like, you know, making the shift weaker, but yeah, he still says it's too strong, right? But I think they're already like trying to move away a little bit from like the super easy, because P5R is really easy. There's so many skill that prevent you from dying out of nowhere. In P3 Reload, you only have I could be wrong, but the only thing I remember so far is that item that prevent you from getting killed by Mudo if you have it. But yeah, in P5R, there's so many skill that prevent you from dying out of nowhere.
The core gameplay.
So I do die in P3R randomly sometime. Not as much as SMT though. That game I die randomly all the time. And not to the boss, to the side road mob.
experience makes conscious efforts to preserve what people enjoyed about the original game, but also changes aspects of the game when appropriate. There are now these optional encounters you can do for a payout. Weapon switching can be done outside of the pause menu, and the game even now has this sick-ass parry that feels right at home with RE4's design. The big difference between these two games is that RE4 Remake, despite its additions, sticks with the same core values of the original game. Persona 3 Reload doesn't do that, and instead opts to throw out what the original title was going for and adapts what's currently the status quo. Now, I wasn't expecting for a second that everything from the original Persona 3 was going to make the cut. However, everything that I just mentioned, no matter how big or small it might seem, does play a substantial part in defining what Persona 3 was in a gameplay sense. With all of these quirks excluded, we're left with a combat system that feels like Persona 5 with a Persona 3 skin, which isn't the worst fate, I suppose. But for what's supposed to be a faithful remake, this is probably the safest route they could have chosen. And this is supposed to be a faithful remake. I remember reading some interviews a while back, picking some of the staff's brain about what kind
That's so bullshit, by the way. Not what he said, but the interview. I don't know if it's the translation or not, but the idea that like they use the word faithful remake, but at the same time saying that like it's gonna be kind of 5R. That's gonna contradict, but I guess because like P3 and P5, yeah.
of remake this was going to be, mainly the one conducted by 4Gamer. This was all the way back in June of last year, so we didn't know too much about the game at the time. While most of the contents of this interview are irrelevant now since we have the game in our hands, it still serves as a good method to understand their mindset while working on this project. There's a lot of interesting stuff to find here, but what stood out to me was this quote by Reload producer Ryota Nitsuma in reference to the original game.
Even after becoming a developer, I felt that P3's appeal was in its rough edges. While that roughness needs to be polished in order to create a game that people will want to play now, those rougher edges are important to the essence of the game, so it's important that they not become too rounded.
You see, what's funny is that I actually agree with what's being said here. As I've demonstrated, it's because Persona 3 has those blemishes that the game manages to still retain a unique sense of identity all these years later. Sure, the execution of those concepts might not have been perfect, but it's undeniable that they are important in making this game what it is. This is something that Atlus themselves even acknowledge, but I have to wonder what exactly they perceive as necessities for the Persona 3 experience. Going through these interviews some more, I noticed that they rarely mention anything about the game's combats outside of the two new features. Just compare the interviews done with the staff of the original game to the ones done for Reload, and you'll notice a big difference in philosophy. In interviews with Katsura Hashino, he talks about the way gameplay is
You're talking about the story? Yeah, I guess the story is kind of faithful.
used to convey certain messages and ideas. You know, using the medium's biggest strength to enhance the experience and provide something you can't get anywhere else. It's the exact opposite.
Before we going too far though, I actually do think what the dev said is pretty much is pretty clear, where they're trying to keep some of the rough edges with some difficult part, but they're also trying to round it off. So, but I think at the end of the day, it's depend how raw do you want it, right? Clearly for Nam, it's too raw, right? But for Atlus, it's probably is like the way that they wanted it.
Opposite attitude that the Reload team seems to have. Reading through these interviews give off the impression that the team behind this remake sees the dungeon crawling portion as lesser compared to the other states of play. That's probably why the core combat takes a lot from Persona 5. It's the most popular game in the series, so obviously some notes are going to be exchanged. I wouldn't be surprised if there were some meetings behind the scene where a certain level of homogeny was mandated so the game would appeal to newer fans. I like Persona 5. It brought a lot of really good and fresh ideas to the table. However, I disagree with the approach of just lifting P5's core systems, dropping them into another game, and just calling it a day. It's the safest and blandest way to bring this classic title to a modern generation, and to some people that's more than enough. But if you were to ask me, this was a huge missed opportunity. Whew, okay, that was pretty long now, wasn't it? So the game's a bit different now, whatever. I understand that the majority of people probably won't care about any of this. To that crowd, all that matters is whether or not the changes that Reload brings make—
He's not wrong. I don't know if it's in the interview or not, but this in one of the Midori posts, and of course there's some drama on Midori now, so her information is probably not going to be trusted by some people. But it might also be an interview, I don't remember. The dev, but the general idea is someone somewhere mentioned that. Sorry, I don't have a source, okay? So you don't have to trust me, but yeah, someone somewhere mentioned that this game are not supposed to be the main thing. Like it is a main thing, but it's supposed to be one of the game that they use as stepping stone to train new staff. Because this game is being made by entirely nearly new staff with only a couple of senior working on them. Because at the end of the day, they're expanding from Persona 5. They make them a lot of money, so they're expanding. They need to train new staff. And the old staff, most of them went to work on Metaphor Re Fantasio. And I think everything that he's saying now, like all the innovative stuff, I could be wrong. They might just take the easy approach, just like what he said. But all the cool, innovative shit should be happening more in Persona 6. Could be wrong though, I don't know. We'll see about that.
Makes the gameplay better. Yeah, the game plays just fine, and I'll at least compliment it for attempting to add new features. Even so, just because one game has more mechanics than another, it doesn't guarantee that those systems have any meaningful depth. Mechanics on their own.
Oh, he just like said the part that I'm saying, just because one game have more mechanic than other doesn't mean it have a meaningful depth. So, you know, but earlier he just used the word simple, like it's bad. But yeah, it's, I guess he do agree that like complexity doesn't always mean that everything is good. It's depend on the context.
Don't mean a whole lot when the design surrounding them isn't up to snuff. A good example of this is with the Devil May Cry games. The original DMC is comparatively simpler to something like the 2013 reboot. In the original game, Dante had access to only 2 main weapons, some skills, and a handful of firearms. Meanwhile, Dante over here has 5 main weapons that can be seamlessly woven into combos. He's got more unlockable skills than ever, and there's even this hook that either lets you pull enemies towards you, or you can pull yourself towards them. Damn, that sounds like a lot, huh? While technically Dante is more capable in the reboot than he was in the original game, the devil is in the details. DMC 1 is a simple game to pick up, but the depth lies in how the game's core mechanics are meshed with the enemy design. It really feels like the game takes full advantage of the toolkit the player has access to, with little tricks hidden all over the game for more seasoned players to give themselves an edge on repeat runs. The reboot gives the player more options in combat, but it ends up not really mattering all too much when every enemy can be taken down in the exact same fashion. There's little to no reason to experiment or try out your new toys outside of intrinsic motivation, or in the cases when you're outright forced to play a certain way. I bring all of this up because I feel as though this exact same conversation can be had about P3R's approach to its gameplay compared to the original. One game has more mechanics, yes, but the design surrounding them isn't up to snuff, which means it's time for everyone's favorite topic, difficulty. Persona 3 Reload is one of the easiest games in the franchise. I'm talking Persona 5 Royal and Innocent Sin levels of brain dead.
Sorry?
Surrounding them isn't up to snuff, which means it's time for everyone's favorite topic, difficulty. Persona 3 Reload is one of the easiest games in the franchise. I'm talking Persona 5 Royal and Innocent Sin levels of brain dead.
One of the easiest? Probably. I don't know if it's the same level as Persona 5 Royal. Persona 5 Royal is considerably much easier for me. But yeah, it's the easier one if you just compare to other Persona.
To give a little context, I played the game on Merciless mode, which
there you go, you play on Merciless, so that's still already easy for him. And yeah, for a lot of people that gonna play SMT, or I mentioned to them, if you play Persona on Merciless mode, you still probably you still probably, you know, try out SMT because Persona Merciless mode are probably gonna be easier than SMT. Probably not. Probably it is. I think it is. Do you know Reload was supposed to be released during Persona 25th anniversary? It was finished at the time, but Sega delayed it. I think I heard that. Was there an official source for that, or just people talking? P5R, you could literally walk through the enemy. P5R is so freaking easy, man. P5R didn't have to fight it. I didn't have to fight the enemy. Jesus Christ.
Credit where it's due, Alice did listen to feedback from Royal. In that game, Merciless mode had a lot of hidden gimmicks that swayed the balance heavily in the player's favor. It was to the point where you were better off playing on hard mode than Merciless mode.
Merciless mode is, to me, is better than hard mode. But no, I actually see sorry, I keep mentioning this, but it really makes so much sense. Like every angle that he come from is built on the foundation that he want a difficult, meaningful game. But that's not always the best direction to make a video game. Because I think Merciless mode is, okay, I could be wrong, but I think what he's gonna say, right, is because it's known that like Merciless mode, what it does is it does make the game harder, but it's not as hard. Because in hard, they scale up the enemy, but in Merciless mode, they also scale up the weakness damage. So if you obey by the game law, you get rewarded much more. So for a lot of people, including the dev, even the dev, I think in the wheel mentioned that Merciless mode is easier than hard, right? But to me, I feel like that's a good thing. I feel like if the game is hard, but you feel rewarded for obeying the game law, I think it's more fun than enemy just scale up. Like enemy is just, okay, now he just have more HP. I think that's, to me, is boring.
It's good to see them walk back on this idea, because now people might actually pick this difficulty level. That's what we call a step in the right.
Oh, but 100% it's confusing as shit. What he said is true, though. It's confusing as shit, because when people pick Merciless mode, they want to play the hard, right? They want to play the hardest, right? I'm not gonna contest that. That's entirely true. I know people are confused by that. The hardest of the modern trilogy gotta be P4 vanilla in expert mode. I swear it's like Nocturne hard, where the star price are triple. Oh yeah, I'm so poor. I was playing Nocturne. Dude, I want to go back to replay Nocturne. Maybe one of this day I will. Yeah, but it's Nocturne definitely one of those games where I feel like I'm being strangled a lot as I play the game. But it's still a fun experience overall. I kind of want to go back to play it sometime.
Direction. Too bad
I played P4 vanilla too, but I don't remember the experience a while back now.
the game is still free as shit. So recently, there's been some revisionist history when it comes to the Persona games. Apparently, all of them have always been baby easy, so there's no point even trying to have a discussion about this. Now,
what are you talking about? No, that's the point. Don't run back on your thing in the beginning, you know. I mean, he didn't really say that entire exact phrase, but no, that's always a, just discuss about it. It's kind of good to hear your thought.
apparently, all of them have, because now people might actually pick this difficulty level. That's what we call a step in the right direction. Too bad the game is still free as shit. So recently, there's been some revisionist history when it comes to the Persona games. Apparently, all of them have always been baby easy, so there's no point even trying to have a discussion about this.
Fuck, I'm sad that he don't discuss about it. So there's like a revision that the game, all of them has always been baby easy since Persona 3. Easy is subjective though. That's why I want to, unfortunately he don't talk about it. I want to hear him talk about it.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but as someone who's been in these trenches for about a decade now, Jesus Christ, it's been 10 years. As someone who's been playing these games for a little bit now, I've gotten to witness firsthand how people's perception towards this franchise has shifted over the years. I remember for the longest time, people considered Megami Tensei to be the big dick JRPGs. They were games that were well known for their high difficulty.
Never heard that, but I could be wrong. I mean, when I grow up, I don't even know SMT exists, to be honest, for a while. It's so overshadowed by Final Fantasy and other title. But now that it's more, after Persona 5, people know about SMT more and know about Persona and Atlas more because the game is more accessible for people.
And yes, this even includes the Persona games, most of them. This mentality only started to change around the time
Oh
when
my
these games
God.
started to receive enhanced re-releases. These newer versions of the Persona games tend to make the games easier, whether that be through the introduction of new mechanics or through really poor rebalancing. Since games like Golden and Royal are treated as the standard by the community and Atlas themselves now, it's easy to forget just how brutal some of these games could get. Like, boot up vanilla Persona 4 on expert mode and you'll be
Oh, so I think he said like there's no point, but he sort of gonna talk about it anyway. Just doesn't really reveal the actual list himself.
shocked to see how much harder enemies' attacks hit. Funnily enough, the only game to not suffer from this was Persona 3, since hard mode was a FES edition. The point is, these games becoming more and more laid-back experiences is a recent thing. While I was expecting Reload to fall short of FES,
That's how I feel too. I feel like it's more laid back as the series go. And yeah, I feel like they're gonna continue to do it because the more laid back, the more people can play it.
is hard.
But eventually, there's probably a lie where it's become like easy that it doesn't mean anything to even average people. Then you probably break it. Yeah.
Mode in terms of challenge. What I wasn't expecting was just seeing how bad the balancing really is. And I mean truly bad. And it sucks saying that because the first 2 in-game months were borderline perfect in terms of balance. Enemies required me to think multiple steps ahead, take full advantage of shifting, and even presents opportunities where you might be better off using the extra turn for something else other than an all-out attack. The bosses were also pretty tricky too, partially due to limited resources at the start of the game, but even when Akihiko joins the party, the game manages to stay fairly challenging. The boss fight against the Clairvoyant Relic was really fun. It's probably my favorite Guardian fight in the game. It's one of the only times where guarding is actually encouraged to be used outside of scripted attacks. Hell, I even ran out of time fighting the Priestess Shadow. That has never happened to me before.
A lot of people say they run out of time fighting these bosses. To be this priestess one.
I'll admit, I was having a really good time during those first few months, partially because of the shiny new game smell, but also because everything just felt right during that period. But then, something horrible happened. What the
DOG, the armband? Is it the
fuck are you
armband?
guys wearing? Not too long after Fuka joins the team, the real
Is it
game
the
breaks down.
armband?
Of course, there's the personality traits, but this is also when you get the theurgy attacks. As I mentioned earlier, these are hilariously exploitable. Boss fights that would have been otherwise interesting end up being trivialized thanks to these. The protagonist's fusion spells are especially guilty of this, since each one scales in power exponentially. Once you unlock Scarlet Havoc, that's it. The game's over. Just pack it up. Even if you don't end up using theurgies to cheese the game, the boss fights in the latter half of the game drop off pretty hard in quality. The Tartarus Guardians in the original game weren't perfect either. Sometimes you'd get fights that were genuine tests of challenge, and other times you'll get a fight that lasts all of one turn before you move on with your life. Even with all those lesser encounters included, the overwhelming majority of the Guardians are well designed. Some even test you in unconventional ways. You'll go
If you're looking for a JRPG to play that like every fight feel like it matters or you have to use your brain, play a game called Shane Echo. That game is really good at it. Even Cyroad Mob, you have to use your brain.
from groups of enemies that all share a weakness to one massive enemy that's a bit more tricky to take down. It gets even more creative the further you ascend Tartarus too. There's a boss where weakness exploits deal little to no damage, forcing you to learn how to keep enemies in check through knockdowns. Eventually, weaknesses are dropped entirely, and you have to deal with whatever gimmick the boss has at their disposal, with no crutch to fall back on. The hard mode version of some of these bosses aren't afraid to clap you until you realize you gotta come in prepared. I love the way the
So true. If you're talking like that's what I mean. The prepare part, that part is like, yeah, it's gone. I'll just say it's gone. To be honest, it's like it's not part of the Persona series, but not necessarily a bad thing. But it's gone. I do miss the Almighty table.
The original Tartarus constantly tries to push you beyond your comfort zone, featuring bosses that have access to skills way above your level, so you're forced to build a proper team. While some might call it a difficulty spike, I just view it as the way Persona 3 escalates the challenge. Let's put it this way, none of these fights, even on hard mode, should ever be considered unfair. Before Reload came out, part of me was hoping that some of the more infamous boss battles would make an appearance with their difficulty still intact. Maybe
Why it shouldn't be considered unfair? I guess unfair, like unbeatable, that's probably a strong word to use. But probably people who play the games could probably say the opposite, right? If you just want to say use that phrase, they probably say like the Persona 3 Reload shouldn't be ever be considered as too easy. And then who's win then? Like if that argument crash, who do you believe? Because one saying like is because it's subjective.
with some nasty surprises thrown in to keep veterans on their toes. While some old bosses do make an appearance, or at least close enough stand-ins do, they're significantly nerfed, whether that be because of added weaknesses or a worse skill selection. Sometimes both. I think the most disappointing boss for me has gotta be Reload's take on the sleeping table. This guy was a menace back in the PS2 game. Powerful fire magic, light-based instinct,
I remember
attack,
this guy.
a deadly ailment combo, and an unblockable heavy damaging almighty attack. This is probably the most infamous fight in the game due to its brutal difficulty spike, and for being Persona 3's real filter. I love this fight, even though I usually get stuck on it for a bit, and I was really looking forward to seeing how it was going to be adapted in Reload. Damn, what is this, the fucking kitty table? Why is he so small? So, the terminal table. He only has one attack that can be easily nullified, and I managed to kill him in one blow with Shinji's Theurgy. Awesome.
Shinji Theurgy is beast as fuck, yeah.
Than the main Tartarus Guardians. Monad has been transformed from an endgame grinding dungeon to a side area hidden within Tartarus. As I said, it mostly serves as a hosting ground for these bonus fights, and they're alright. A lot more similar in design to the bosses in The Answer than the original game.
Man, I nearly feel like, you know, what he's saying have more weight in it because he's playing in Merciless. Because like maybe they should make Merciless even harder. Although he did say it's fine in the beginning, but DOG is broke it. So maybe if they balance more with how strong DOG is for Merciless, he might be okay with it more.
But this is a bad thing, mind you, because I actually enjoy the more puzzle-like approach to the Answer's boss design. However, it's difficult to appreciate the callback when we're shackled with Reload's terrible balancing. I can imagine some of these fights being a whole lot of fun under the right circumstances, and sometimes that shows. But the thing is, after a certain point, the damage output on the player's end becomes so ridiculous that you'll be lucky to actually experience some of the late-game bosses. Whenever a game is too easy, something that I hear a lot of people say is to impose self-inflicted challenges, mainly through restrictions. I'm a pretty big fan of challenge runs.
I think accessibility is a great thing about Reload, though admittedly it could be a lot harder in a higher difficulty, a little bit too much accessibility if you ask me. Okay, so yeah, I agree with what you said, especially not especially, but mainly about the higher difficulty. Because yeah, you want the normal, I think majority people should have fun when they're playing normal mode, right? And I think majority of people do. The game sell well and it review well. Until the DLC, until the I guess DLC is revealed, then they get the review bomb, right? But I think majority of people enjoy it. So I think they do please the people that they're trying to please. But yeah, for Nam and the people that want more challenge, yeah, definitely agree that they should. I don't play Merciless mode, but from what he said, I just take his word for it. It shouldn't be that easy, right? You shouldn't be able to one-shot the boss with DUG. As long as you get DUG, you could easily farm Reaper and get level 99. Yeah, but at the same time, you could not, unless you wanted to. But I guess you want them to like not let you do that, I guess. Trying to think. Do you want it to be there? I feel like Reaper, killing Reaper will make the game easier if you can do it. So maybe it's easier just not to have it, but they obviously wanted to keep it because you know, they want to keep that the line where like, you know, time doesn't wait for no one, so like eventually like death itself caught up to you.
I've even done a couple of them on this channel. But the thing is, you shouldn't have to make up some scuffed rule set just to fix poor balancing. If you don't like it, don't use it, works well in theory, but why should I have to accommodate for poor design? It sort of takes the wind out of the sails when the new features added to combat are best ignored if you want a better experience. The original game might give the player less to work with, but at the very least, you're encouraged to make the most out of what you have. And even so, the game still provides a modicum of resistance. If you decide to take the same approach in Reload, then watch in awe at the kind of shit you can pull off. I already talked about personality traits and theurgies, and while they are insanely powerful, the main source of poor balancing comes from just how easy it is to build busted-ass personas, and skill cards are almost entirely.
Yeah, you know, like the part where he said the GOG gauge feel really fast. I don't think it feel that fast, by the way. I also don't think it's slow. Maybe on... They all words anyway. Like what is slow, what is fast, what is moderate. But to me, it just feel right. But definitely could be one thing that they could do in Merciless, right? Make the theurgy harder to fill. That would be one thing.
Entirely at fault for this. Over the years, I've concluded that skill cards are
Very subjective. I like having overpowered characters. Oh yeah, for sure. That's why the main part where so we're nearly there. We're over a way half. But I have been mentioned this whole entire thing where I think Persona 3 Reload success, you know, success in making the game that its main audience wanted to play, or the main target audience they want to play, which is a more casual or average JRPG. But what Nam is saying is not entirely wrong, but he's saying it from a perspective of a JRPG enthusiastic, people who really like, you know, a harder JRPG and feel rewarded for beating them and stuff like that. So I can understand what he's saying, and you know what, a lot of stuff that he said does make sense. But definitely in terms of like, right now I'm still on the idea of like, you know, the title of the video is how Persona 3 Reload lost its identity. I'm still on the fence. I'm not on the fence. I'm still on the side of like, it probably doesn't matter. It probably doesn't matter that it's not that hard anymore.
the worst addition that the series.
Although, yeah, for the merciless mode, it can be harder if they want to put more time in balance mode. So then, if they make it harder, it will please people like Numb. And while that is a smaller set of group of audience, they exist.
Has ever had. What started as
And that's the funny part to me. I love doing bullshit in games. Oh yeah.
a novel idea has snowballed into a quick and easy way to bypass inheritance rules and build some truly disgusting personas.
I think DOG is at decent speed, especially since you have to fulfill certain things to make it go up. Yeah, that's how I feel too. I don't think it's too slow or too fast. But I already told you guys that I'm not a JRPG like hardcore. The way that I like to play JRPG is usually on the normal mode. I just want a little bit of challenge sometime, and most of the time I'm just want to progress the story. And I will play on the harder mode if the game is somehow super easy on normal, which I don't know why, but some game when you play on normal mode, it doesn't feel normal. It feels like absurdly easy.
Skill cards were first introduced in Persona 3 Portable, and it's safe to say that it's also where the system was best implemented. You had to grind up personas to a very high level to fully take advantage of the system, and even so, you only got one copy of the skill card. While there is a way to duplicate skill cards, it's a lengthy process, and you can only copy one at a time.
Yeah.
This helped keep the system in check, even though I don't think they mesh too well with the game's natural design. However, it's in the future games where skill cards start to become problematic. It became too easy to build up a collection of some of the most powerful skills in the game. I don't know about you, but a skill like Debilitate probably shouldn't be something you can just throw on any random persona because you're bored. And Persona 3 Reload brings this full circle. This game just
No, you should be able to do it. Sorry, man, I'm trying not to be like extremist, but because he's not entirely wrong, but he's not entirely right. It just is so subjective. Because some people, they like the idea of customizing stuff, but he's going from the angle of like it make the game too easy. He want everything to, he want not specific use for everything, but he want everything to kind of have like, you need to use this for this situation kind of thing. You probably could find something in the middle, but I think yeah, again for their main target demographic, I think they can like the ability to customize.
Showers you with
I always forgot to make skill card. They're so free now, bro. They're so free now. I barely do that in the original and in the new one. I just do them sometimes just for the sake of it because they're so free now.
skill cards of all sorts of variety, but the ones you're really looking for are the passive abilities. It's true that skills like Fire Boost and Apt Pupil are a little rarer than others, but once you snag one of them, you're set for basically the whole game. For some reason or another, the shrine that let you duplicate skill cards was changed in this version of the game.
This overall is a good video, though. I'm probably not gonna agree with the conclusion, but I think it's still pretty well made.
While before,
Like he was quite articulated in the way that he expressing his opinion, and yeah, it's coming from someone who play on merciless mode, like him, coming from him who played merciless mode, and a person who like probably a really enthusiastic class JRPG person. It really shows.
duplicating skill cards took 5 in-game days to complete.
Not in all
Now,
Persona
the
games, I
process
just
is instant.
forgot.
Sure,
Okay.
you can only duplicate 1 skill card per day, but there's
To be honest, I don't do that in the Persona 5. Like I don't use the Fox ability. It's funny though because the Shy is called Inari Shy, and you know like Fox nickname is also Inari, and they like can dupe skill cards.
nothing stopping you from duplicating the same card over and over. Never before has it been this easy to optimize personas to deal ridiculous amounts of damage.
100%.
And don't
It's
even get
much
me started
easier
on some of
now.
the new skills added to this game because Jesus Christ. Physical fans are eating very well this time around because it is by far the best method of dealing damage. On top of physical boost and amp skills being introduced, there are also critical hit rate boost and amp skills. This is on top of the already included Apt Pupil, by the way. Combine this with equipment to boost your crit rate even further, and you'll be landing critical hits more often than not, and dealing insane amounts of damage while you're at it. And if there's any enemy that nulls Fizz, then just use Scarlet Havoc. This might just be the most powerful skill in the entire franchise. For crying out loud, you can deal more damage than Armageddon, the skill that's meant to kill everything in one hit.
I will say, in my opinion, Reload does a pretty good job at incorporating the theme of the original while playing it to the Persona 5 gameplay. Though I agree this game has less at risk compared to the OG. Yeah, it's not contestable. Like he's right. Cause yeah, it's just a matter of like, is that bad or does it matter? Because yeah, it'll be stupid to contest that is it's more risk because it's not.
Physical had the potential to be pretty good in the original game, but it was never to this extent. This might just be the best Physical has ever been, in fact. There was a reason why boost and amp skills were limited to just magic before this. My mindset when it comes to difficulty is that I don't mind if a game is easy as long as it's fun to play. Even so, there is a limit to this. When a task is so effortless that you can accomplish your goal without much thought,
I don't mind if the game is easy, as long as they're fun to play. Well, I think majority of people is probably of that mindset, but I think majority of people probably have fun playing Persona 3 Reload. But yeah, for him, probably not. I mean, not probably. I know it's not. I think the only solution is to make Merciless mode harder, like maybe making it limit sources, or making stuff like fusion spell and armor cost more material. That's a good way to put it. It's just kind of shitty, which is because sorry, what the fuck am I like? That's sorry. Sometimes like I can't English, even though I use. It's crazy. Like English is actually my primary language, even though it's not my first language, but I use English the most. But sometimes I just, what am I saying? You know, kind of thing. Like, what am I trying to say? But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that it's similar to what he mentioned about the AI. I think it's not on high priority list of the dev. So like they just kind of have it, but they didn't work that hard on it, kind of thing. Cause yeah, like I think what you're saying is a really good idea, making stuff more expensive. You could also lower the critical, right? There's just changing scale number. You could also lower the critical rate, right? Not the actual rate of the critical happen, but making critical less hurt, you know, or stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff they can do to fine tune the merciless mode to make it more enjoyable to a really enthusiastic type of JRPG people. But from the look of it, yeah, they can just focusing on their main audience, which why wouldn't they, right? That's who they want to sell it to the most.
repetition of it all becomes much more noticeable, and unfortunately, this also bleeds over to the Tartarus exploration itself. Tartarus in the original game is rather infamous for being a bit dull, and I do understand where people are coming from and why some just don't like it. It works well as a cost-saving measure, since the dungeon design is non-existent, and there isn't much else to do other than fight shadows. For a remake that attempts to address complaints fans had of the original...
I hate this stupid big hand mechanic, by the way. It's so gimmicky. Like, I hate it when it happens so much. It's not like it's useless, but it just feels really gimmicky. Like, they were just there for gimmick rather than being, like, carefully thoughtful.
I'm surprised to see that there aren't many new additions or changes made. In fact, I'm going to drop a little bit of a hot take here and say that the original Tartarus was a lot more
Super hot. Let's go. Let's go. Turn it up. Turn the heat up.
That might sound a little bit weird, but hear me out for a second. The dynamic between enemy and player in the original game was a lot more engaging. The original Tartarus was filled with tight corridors and choke points, and it was a little tricky to sneak by shadows because of it. More often than not, choosing to avoid...
Alright, I gotta reword back a bit, but let me read you guys' comment real fast. I said this in the comment of Nam video, but as someone who has played every version of Persona games, every version of the game, I prefer reroll to any version. Yeah, that's what I mean. So, I think they still hit. I think they still hit that spot. You know, like at least I think they still deliver that spot. They hit the goal, which is to make their target audience happy with the version of the game, and I think majority of their target audience do. And I think Nam is not their target audience because he's more enthusiastic JRPG, right? Like SMT team, I think are more trying to serve that group of audience, right? More enthusiastic JRPG, right? Reload is fun, very fun. I like slamming through enemy without destroying them by ramming them with a damn card cat. Bosses are also a pretty good challenge at times, especially the last monad though. Oh man, I didn't do the last monad though, because I was trying to finish the game. I need to go replay this game, to be honest. Like I need to go replay Reload because there's some footage and some stuff that I wanted to talk about that I have to go back to grab. I took 1 year to complete Fest because Tartarus was a bit frustrating. Meanwhile, I took 1 month in completing Reload. Yeah, that's the thing too. I don't know if you guys know, but modern gamers, they're not really keen to making the game long for the sake of long. Like, they're not really as forgiving. For back in the day, there's 2 reasons to keeping the game long, right? So it just feels like the game have more value, which is not necessary true, but it's also like, you know, allow you to sell guidebook and stuff like that for those kind of stuff, and yeah, it make people play your game longer. But in the modern era we live in, people care a lot about their time. Even in Reload, I am still a little bit annoyed, not that much, a little bit in that situation, because I feel like if your game is 1 hour plus or like 60, 70 hour long, I should be able to complete all the social link without using a guide. Like it should let me complete the social link by just like thinking a little bit, like enough room for me to complete all the social link. Because I don't want to replay your game just to experience that aspect. You know, I just want to see the new aspect that I don't see. But in order to do so, I have to go through all the shit. I can skip it, but it's still going to be long, right? All through the shit for another 70 plus hours just to see extra social link that I don't see. Yeah, that part I don't like. I feel like people should respect your more time. They should respect your time more in this kind of game. But no, it's just a little bit nitpicking. Overall, I still think it's fine. SMT would be more his speed Persona game. It's just like fun for yeah. It's just more feel good JRPG. It was not. That's the thing. So that's the thing that this video is not wrong until like it lost its identity. It does. It's not the same anymore because Persona 3 does kind of feel a little bit SMT-ish. And you know, the more we go up in the version, it doesn't anymore. But yeah, at the end of the day, like I just think it doesn't matter if it keep it or not. I think it's more Nam does bring up some good point, but I feel a lot of his video of him being blind by nostalgia. Some part sound like that, but overall, you don't need to change your mind, by the way. over here on my stream, I love it, by the way, when people are able to bring out, tell me what they're thinking, despite if I disagree with it or not, right? I think that's a really nice quality that we have here, where I can just tell you what I think, you can tell me what you think, and even though we disagree, it's still cool, right? But okay, so I do think in some subject it sounds so, but from my feeling overall, he did well in conveying why he feel a certain way, and a lot of them is factual, but the differences is that the difference that I have from him is I don't think it lead to the same conclusion. Like for example, right? Like he's saying that like, oh, they remove the fatigue system. Fatigue system not necessarily bad because of this reason, right? Like those were facts. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that like the version we have right now is worse. In fact, it depends which angle you coming in from, right? Because accessibility is pretty important as we talked about earlier, and if the game is still as more strict, like it's still as strict as Persona 3, there'll be less people that play it, which means less Persona in the future or take longer to make. So is that a good thing? That can be argued pretty easy that it's a bad thing. So now you have a game that's really meaningful to people that want to play JRPG, but you're going to have less Persona in the future. It'll take longer for it to come out, right? But now that we focus on making it accessible and focusing on casual player, they're able to make Persona as big as, to be honest, there's still some stuff that I think they wish to improve, but it's a pretty big game now. Like it's not like a small game anymore. It's quite AAA level, right? Yeah, like it's for that reason that we get to this stage. So it's arguable that like if you were to fucking remove that and keep it like the super like more difficult, more thoughtful one, we will get to this stage, right? We might not even have Persona 6, which hopefully is a banger. I don't know if it's gonna be or not. To me, make big chances. To me, Reload and P3 are two flavor of my favorite games. One appeal to SMT brain, the other, yeah, 100%. It's just not the same target audience. I don't think he's saying that Reload is worse than the original. I think his point is that it doesn't feel the same, which is not supposed to feel exactly the same. That's what I think the title of the video suggests. But you can really see in some topic, he's trying to say that it's better or it's worse this way. So while I don't know about the overall aspect, he did say in the beginning where he's okay with the game, but I think overall aspect, it sounds like he's saying that the original is better, at least to his liking. I'm glad Persona is accessible because it's introduced me to SMT. Oh, 100%, to be honest, I played Persona first before SMT. No, that's not true. I played Noxu first when I was a kid, but I couldn't get into it because I keep getting fucked by Matador. You guys know, like that meme? Get fucked by, Matador, yeah. Because, again, I have a pretty Pokemon brain when I was a kid. I can't beat something, it means I have to grind more, right? I don't think about, like, the game mechanic. It's just like, I can't beat something? I guess I gotta go grind more, right? But that's not how SMT work.
That the original Tartarus was a lot more fun to explore. That might sound a little bit weird, but hear me out for a second. The dynamic between enemy and player in the original game was a lot more engaging. The original Tartarus was filled with tight corridors and choke points, and it was a little tricky to sneak by shadows because of it. More often than not, choosing to avoid a shadow entirely came with a bit of a risk, since they would attempt to hunt you down for a certain distance. But the really cool part about this is that if you were forced to retrace your steps for whatever reason, the behavior of that enemy would completely change. The shadow would enter this alert phase where it would act as a wall and try to cut you off. Still possible to avoid, but much trickier. Play too recklessly and you'll find yourself cornered with no other way out than to fight. And as I said, the different weapon types allowed you to alter your approach options to fit your playstyle. Yeah, the old version of Tartarus wasn't perfect, but the design was very considered. Tartarus in Reload removes that entire dynamic. Not only are you stuck to using one-handed swords, but the alert phase that I mentioned was also removed. Now shadows vanish after chasing you for a set distance, and if you were to go back, it's like you were never there to begin with. What, did you get bored or something? But what truly neuters all potential challenges in the exploration is the sprint button. I don't mind this in principle. The floors are bigger player now, so it only makes sense to have it, right? Sure, it's a little easy to run past some encounters now, but it's not anything I'm losing sleep over. What's perplexing though is that this sprint can be upgraded to guarantee yourself player advantages when striking an enemy. It doesn't matter what angle you approach the shadow, you'll still get the advantage. Literally the exact opposite of the old game. It creates this weird scenario where you're honestly better off charging in head first rather than surveying the area to pick the best option. The last thing I should be doing when the Reaper shows up is slamming into him with the speed and force of a bullet train. Man, what happened to the Reaper? Used to be scared shitless whenever I saw this guy. Now you can just casually walk circles around him, like he's not even there. And I think this is probably where we should call it on the
Scared shitless because the fool got dialogue. Sorry. The funniest thing I watched is I watched this video 45 minutes before you went live. Nice. So you're still, your mind's still fresh about it. Yeah, Matador was a slap in the face to anyone who didn't use buff and debuff. Yeah, buff, debuff, team building. That's definitely one thing that I learned from SMT. Like, you can't just smooth brain. You gotta think. You can't just be like, oh, can't beat it. It means I'm not high enough level. No, you gotta think. You gotta know the weakness. You gotta team build. You gotta debuff, buff. The Pokemon brain, when I saw Strong on Fire, I thought fire caused when I saw Strong on Fire, I thought fire kill more damage. Fire do more damage. Yo, that is real. That is real Pokemon smooth brain. I fucking love it, dude. What the fuck? Did you finish SMTVV? No, I'm about 12 hours in. I just beat Lamu. Nearly say Llama.
gameplay. Trust me, there is a lot more that I could say, but I think I've gotten the point across. And going in
Fuck, keep saying it, dude. Don't stop. I like hearing people thought. It's awesome. Especially, like, you know, people who's not crazy.
into any further detail
Despite I agree at the end or not, I just like hearing people thought, really.
would just be really nitpicky. Yeah, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of the direction they took with the dungeon crawling. I know that I've
We can tell.
been pretty negative throughout this section, but that's because a lot of the nice things I have to say about Reload's gameplay is very basic shit. Yeah, manual skill inheritance is good, and the more varied Tartarus generation is nice, but it's not something that I think is worthy of praise, since it's to be expected. Even if I were to acknowledge those points in this video, we're still looking at a net negative here. The aspects of Reload's game design that I don't like are just too severe to be ignored. Maybe there's one or two good changes in there, but the fact is, the majority of it isn't to my liking. It's difficult for me to judge Reload on its own merits when I've already got a reference point as to how Persona 3 combat can be handled. I believe the only way to truly
I think it's fine not to judge it on its own. I mean, it's a remake of the original. It's fine to compare. Besides, also even mentioned it's a faithful remake despite the mechanic change, but I think it's fine to compare.
evaluate a remake on its own is if you have an
One thing I really like of P3, which is still in Reload, but to a lesser extent, is that it felt like the middle ground between SMT and Persona. That's also why DDS Duology is my favorite Atlas game. Yeah. P3 is Persona game that still have some SMT feeling in it, definitely, but not as hard as actual SMT game. By the way, I forgot talking about the Pokemon brain shit. When I was a kid, dude, like, I think I didn't pick fucking Charmander, by the way, I'm sorry. I picked Bulbasaur. But anyway, the story is generally, I don't really change Pokemon that much. Like, the moment I reach a gym that use fire or something that, you know, Bulbasaur is weak to, or getting super effective to, I just like, okay, I'm just gonna go grind Bulbasaur the shit up, and then I just go try the gym again, and then that's just solve every problem. But if you don't know, Pokemon is like the game made for kid. Now, okay, I know that's like super serious competitive series. It's a super serious competitive scene, and it can be taken really seriously. But yeah, the game is at a core designed for kids, so that's why it's like that.
experienced any aspect of the original game, since even that slight exposure will set expectations. I don't find it to be unfair to compare Reload to the original, since, well, it's a remake. Persona 3 Reload
I don't know who the hell says unfair, but I'm sure they exist. No, just screw them. Just
wants to recapture
compare
the
away.
experience provided by that classic title. It's the criteria that devs behind the project were following, and if you were to ask me, I think they failed to accomplish that mission statement. This entire situation just gives me flashbacks to the 2016 Ratchet & Clank reboot. Another remake of one of my favorite games that failed to deliver on what it set out to accomplish from a game.
Never play Russian and Kang. That seemed to be very counterproductive mindset. Some changes are expected, so they shouldn't be praised. but other changes should have stayed closer to the original, so they are lame. Yeah, no. So I don't know if you're talking about the same point as me, but if you're saying that like just saying something change doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. Something stay the same doesn't necessarily mean it's good. It need to be elaborate more, which I think he do for most of them. But sometimes he do just can you just say that like it's simple because it's lame or something like that, which is another topic where I feel like sometimes some words just have a bad stigma to it, and people might feel a certain way, but to be actual, articulated about the subject, you need to elaborate more.
Play perspective. In Ratchet's case, the remake took what was a pretty novel concept for a 3D platformer and turned it into a standard third-person shooter with some jumping and fun weapons. The quirks that defined the original title were morphed and changed to the point where the game was almost unrecognizable. Sure, the gameplay is a little bit smoother now since it adapts a more modern playstyle, but what this results in is an extremely safe and bland product. There's fun to be had, but it's nothing all too special, and I think they would have been better off sticking closer to the medley of concepts that gave the original game its identity, and the exact same sentiment applies to Persona 3 Reload. Weird this is the second time this has happened to a favorite game of mine, but hey, what do you gotta do? Now, I understand that all I just said might not mean a whole lot to you if you view Persona gameplay as a means to an end. I get that. Back when I first got into this series, I didn't particularly care all too much about this stuff. Sure, I had fun with the combat of a game like Persona 4, but what really drew me in was the social life elements, and I'm sure most people watching probably feel the same. It's only after I really got into analyzing games as experiences rather than as products when this kind of stuff started to matter to me. I'm a huge fan of when video games try to use their mechanics and design to express the main messages of the game. It's why I like titles like The World Ends With You so much. Sure, they might be a little unconventional, and I can even imagine some people outright disliking those weird quirks, but it's impossible to deny that these kinds of games have a hell of a lot of personality and express their core messages in creative ways. This is something that the original Persona 3 accomplishes rather well, but is a bit lacking in the remake. If you had more fun with the direction Reload took with its gameplay systems, then more power to you, but it's not really something that I could get into.
Okay, I mean, if you like the original more, that's more power to you too, right? But yeah, in generally, no, I'm gonna say the same points. I'm just gonna keep watching it. I'm doing a demi-fiend less run in Noxu, so I got 4 demon, no MC and hard, so I'm suffering. Well, that's all you enjoy it. I know some people like suffering, but I think he want like a remake. That's hard. I think that's harder or more thoughtful. I think that's what he wants.
The biggest reason why people wanted a Persona 3 remake to begin with was to see that classic title be portrayed through the lenses of modern standards. The presentation received a massive overhaul, and for the most part, I'm a fan of the end results. Tatsumi Port Island has never looked and felt so alive, with every detail being painstakingly recreated. The character models all look great, and the in-battle animations are as polished as ever. What surprised me the most, though, was just how much I enjoyed the voice acting for this game. Back when Reload was first announced, there was a bit of friction when it was revealed that—
I think he want to remaster, not remake. So just like a graphic improvement, everything the same. It can sound that way sometimes. Can sound that way. I'm not sure if that's what he really wants.
Was going to be replaced. It was a little disappointing to hear.
I don't know if I will ever get to talk to him. To be honest, I feel like I would never talk to any other Persona creator. Could be wrong, no, but I'm actually don't mix well with people. Because I wouldn't say that I'm confrontational, but sometimes I am. If there's something I want to say, I'll say it. So like I like to say stuff rather than preserving harmony. So, and I feel like that's counterintuitive in average social setting.
Here at first, especially since the Japanese cast remain the same. However, it doesn't take much thought.
Like, I'm not really trying to please people that much. Like, you know, you guys were saying stuff, right? If I don't agree, I just say I don't agree. And if you like, oh shit, he's stupid for like don't agree, and then you leave, I actually don't care. I don't mind at all, to be honest. But if you know, like just hearing different thought, that's also cool. But yeah,
to come up with a few reasons as
like I'm not always the person that will preserve harmony.
This was the case. As much as I wanted the old voice actors to return, I was more than willing to give these new guys a shot, and they're pretty good actually. In some cases, I find the new casting to be an improvement. Alejandro Saab's more stoic take on Akihiko allows for the character's more dorky moments to be a stronger whiplash. Oh, but the best recasting is Zeno Robinson as Junpei. He manages to perfectly capture the energy and attitude you'd expect from the character, but when the time comes for Junpei's more sensitive side to be put on display, he pours his heart out. And of course, shitpost legend Alex Lee has taken the mantle as the protagonist.
Hey there, everybody. This is Luke from Streets.
Not sure if this is a hot take to
You're the same way, nice.
say, but I believe this is a perfect recasting, and I would love to hear these new voice actors return in future games. Something really cool is that a handful of the original cast
Yeah, this chop lady is like Kawagami. The first time I heard it, I'm like, wait a second, why is this sound like a certain t-shirt? Like I heard this before somewhere.
does return to voice some of the adult characters. I'm not sure if this was intentional or not, but it comes off as the old voice actors.
I think it is intentionally. They're having if you go to the Atlas YouTube, there's in their voice actor interview, they have like a section where they bring a lot of the old voice actor to and interview them about, you know, their experiences working in the past and how did the series affect them in real life, and, you know, just to let people know that they give blessing to the new wave of voice actor. So I think they're doing this to respect them to a certain degree. But now I know there's like drama and controversy for some of the old voice actor. I don't know what it is exactly though, so I'm not gonna go too much into that. But I think those people were actually not invited to those interview. Could be wrong though.
Passing the
I'll go continue my playthrough as FT. Okay. See ya.
torch to the new generation. One last hurrah with Persona 3 before their time in the spotlight comes to an end. My only minor complaint though is that Grant George is terribly miscast. In the PS2 game, he voices Shinjiro Aragaki alongside Officer Kurosawa, but in Reload, he now voices Mitsuru's father, with Kurosawa now being voiced by Liam O'Brien. Like, come on, it was right there. But other than that,
Sorry, what?
comes to an end. My only minor complaint though is that Grant George is terribly miscast. In the PS2 game, he voices Shinjiro Aragaki alongside Officer Kurosawa, but in Reload, he now voices Mitsuru's father, with Kurosawa.
Is this true? I thought this is. I probably misremember, but I thought that's what they did. I thought they moved the Shinjiro voice actor to do the officer in the newer one. That's true? Damn, I must have misremembered it somehow then. Jesus. When it's come to voice acting, I will say that I personally think the new cast is league better than the old one. I love the old cast, but the voice acting itself isn't just very good. I agree for majority of the case. Sometimes there's like there's like, oh, I feel like it's better in the old one, but in majority I think the new one is better. At least in terms of conveying emotion. But that makes sense though, because you know, the more we move forward in the future, the more information we have. So, you know, we know what to teach or where am I going with this? I'm trying to say that the more we go in forward, you know, the more humanity move forward, the more information we have stored up. Before it's library, now is internet, right? So if you're a voice new actor, right? Nowadays, there's a lot of research for you to like, oh, how do you voice better? But for people back in the day, it's hard to learn, and then they have to do a lot of trial and error. So generally, in general sense, usually the new voice actor, they're more, they get better younger. If anything, they get better when they were younger, because there's a lot of stuff that they can look at. I wish Nan had a video going into what he want in the remake, kind of like what I want in Persona 3 Reload, so I can see what he want to improve, but also what he didn't want to change. He did say what he want, but I guess you mean like what is his propose on improving it. He just said that like it's not good because of this, so technically he want it harder, but I guess like what he proposed, right? Like, okay, so Merciless wasn't hard enough, so what would you do about it? Like, what would he do about it, right? I guess that's what you mean. Yeah, that would be kind of cool. Compared to then, there are a lot of god voice actor now. Yeah, like they get better much faster due to the information we have, due to the information available to them. Shinji OVA is Mr. Father's Aki. Okay, thanks for checking for me. Thank you. I appreciate you guys being here.
Like, come on, it was right there. But other than that,
I'm really enjoying you know, discussing and watching this kind of stuff and sharing with you guys. Although live stream is actually not my best content, but there's so much value in it, you know. While like, you know, it's not my most popular one, but it's nice, you know, having you guys here discuss with me, bouncing ideas back and forth. It's actually pretty awesome, to be honest.
critical failure. It's a pretty cool sentiment. The voice
I will say there are some old voice actor who can never be top. Possibly, yeah, possibly. There definitely is like legend status people, and some people are just kind of born for the role, if anything.
acting compliments don't stop here either. For the first time in the franchise, every single social link rank is fully voiced. This is an awesome addition, and it adds so much life to the game's world, and honestly, helps you appreciate some of these characters more than you otherwise would have. I know I'm not the only one who found Kenji to be a lot more endearing after he got a voice actor. It's a lot easier to understand that.
Bro, I have this with the freaking the Bunakada kid. I forgot his name. With the voice actor, it actually helped a bit, but I'm pretty sure people still hate him. But
Kenji isn't exactly super serious about dating a teacher, and he's just trying to live a childhood fantasy. This is something that you can infer in the original game's dialogue, but having definitive proof of what tone the character is speaking in helps a lot. Quite a few social links became more enjoyable to me thanks to the voice acting. Yuko especially rose on my list because her voice actress did a fantastic job.
I fucking love Yugo voice. It's such a good balance. A lot of the character in Persona 3 Reload, like the voice actor, it's pretty good balance to me between making it sound kind of like mundane people talking but anime, so it's not like over the top anime type, it's just kind of like the right balance where it still sound anime but it also sound kind of like normal people. Obviously there's some character that still is pretty over the top, but generally I think that's how I feel
For the
about
most part,
most of them.
Reload looks and sounds great, but that's not to say it's perfect. One of my big problems with this game's art direction is the color palette and lighting. Persona 3 on PS2 has very moody colors. Sure, blue is the game's main theme, however, most of that exists in the UI and opening movie. The actual environments have a dreary tone. The best example of this is Iwatodai Dorm. The soft lighting and dark colors gives this place an almost uncomfortable feeling at the start of the game. Though, as you familiarize yourself with this place, it ends up becoming very welcoming. You start to associate the dorm with that of a safe haven, a place where you don't have to wear any masks and you can do whatever you want. Though at the end of the game, when the final countdown to Nyx begins, the dorm takes on a whole new feeling. Suddenly that warm welcome is replaced with a sense of impending dread. Every night you return to the dorms, that knot in your stomach gets a little tighter because day by day, your biggest challenge—
What is that pose? What are you doing there? What's going on? I love it.
approaches. In contrast, Iwatodai
Oh, she was chilling with Koromaru. Sorry, that's all in my head.
Dorm in Reload
It's much harder to connect to social link when they are on voice. Yeah.
looks like crap. It's mostly the flat lighting to blame. Everything is so perfectly lit that there aren't even shadows being cast.
This
by the
part I agree with a
characters.
lot.
This
Okay.
just makes them feel like models plopped in a scene rather than people who actually live there. You get used to it eventually, but for such an important location, it really should have looked better. Speaking of which, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of how they approach the dark hour in this game. Everything is just so brightly lit and saturated that it dilutes the oppressive atmosphere. And don't even get me started on just how green everything is. This game takes the Nocturne HD approach when it comes to its lighting. It makes the dark hour overwhelmingly green. Yeah, it's green in the original game too, but the difference is that it was subtle, a nice tint to help distinguish our own reality from this otherworldly take on the contemporary. Now everything is so fucking green you'd swear this is Persona 6. Dare I say that the lighting sometimes ruins the mood on occasion. One of my favorite
Something about that is so funny to me. It doesn't bother me that it's that green, by the way, but the way he said it, like, it's so fucking green. It give like that a Breaking Bad, like Mexico feel where everything is fucking yellow. The way you say it's kind of funny to me. The color become more paler in the game and reflect more desired situation. Yeah, after was it like after New Year, right? I know that happened. I don't remember the exact time. Was it something like that? But it's kind of funny the way you say it.
visuals in the game was the final boss arena. This shit was legendary in the original. This godly being towers over the player with the moon illuminating it from behind. Harsh dark clouds swirl over the top of Tartarus. It almost feels like the dark hour has finally crossed over into our regular world. The perfect setup for an endgame fight. The final boss in Reload is just green. A lot of the small details that make the original fight feel so alive are missing too. And you know what? This is a constant problem throughout the game. The battle backgrounds in the PS—
Bro, I think the final fight is much cooler in the new one. But it could have been cooler. I wish there's more like kind of midway cutscene, because when the wing changed color, there's like this little cutscene. I wish there's more of that. That shit was cool. I should do more.
2 version were so good.
We're gonna get that later, maybe. The boss fight get more dynamic over time. Look at those fader. Exactly, that part was cool as shit, bro. I wish to do more of that.
good dude. They were all these psychedelic mindscapes that took elements from the regular environments and twisted them into these extravagant pieces. The full moon shadows had some really standout ones in particular, with my favorite one being the Hermit Shadows arena. It uses the context of a shadow siphoning the city's power to its fullest extent. The room is entangled by thick red and blue cables, with currents of electricity crackling along through them. The dark lighting allows for the Hermit's Gigaspark attack to fully stand out, and the low camera angle gives this beast an imposing form, even though it's one of the easier bosses in the game. The Hermit arena in Reload is just a green room, with cables so thin that you might not even notice them. The same is true for almost all of the boss arenas. What were once these elaborate set pieces have been sanded off and simplified into these boring, lifeless rooms. The arenas might match the cutscenes now, but goddammit, this is a video game. Where's the
Talking about that is actually super funny when I realized that when you fight the priestess boss, the cargo become like super huge, even though the train cargo is really small, right? But when you get to the fight, it becomes huge.
Spectacle. What happened to the attention to detail? Fuck, even Portable managed to keep all this stuff in, and that's just
Attention to detail. I'm not sure about that one. I feel like the attention is the same. It's just, I guess, say it make more sense to say that like it just fit more themically better for it to have like more like pale or like more desaturated lighting. But deciding between using more green hue and not using it, I feel like it take the same amount of effort.
bad. But if you want downgrades in the presentation...
Oh my god, it's so fucking green. I love it. Man, it's like the Honk movie. One of them, I don't remember. The lever is the exact same, not gonna lie. Although, not gonna lie. I don't remember. Oh wait, it is there. Yeah. Somewhat, yeah.
Look no further than
yeah.
The standard and engine ones look fine, but again, they lack some of the basic small details that help them feel
Persona
alive.
6, let's go. Yeah. Oh my god. Yo, go make that theory right now. You know why Persona 3 Reload is so green? Well, here's why. Somehow try to stretch that out to a 15-minute video. You get like 1 million view. Let's go, dude.
And the script isn't doing them any favors either. For some reason or another, Persona 3 Reload bases its script off of the PSP version of the game. If you know anything about Portable, then you know that instead of having fully 3D cutscenes, the game takes on a visual novel presentation. This was necessary to accommodate for the hardware, so to make
I fucking hate this, but what he's saying is true. Like, yeah, they need to do it. But usually this kind of presentation I hate the most. I usually fall asleep. Unless the voice acting is really good or something like that. But usually when I play JRPG, because I do play quite a lot of JRPG, but when it's like this kind of presentation, like person on the left, person on the right, I fall asleep nearly all the time.
make up for the lack of visuals, extra descriptors and lines were added to the script. It works there because it's literally necessary. But for some reason or another, this was the script adapted for the remake. What ends up happening is that instead of allowing the players to get absorbed into the story and experience the intended emotions themselves, the characters now flat out tell you what's going on and how you should feel about it. Whatever
Good point. There is the part that I was critical about this game. In fact, it's probably one of my complaint I have about the game for real, where I feel like this company have too much money at this point to half-ass their cutscene. Like, you know, the character just walking in like a sitcom. It's usually a scene, right? Okay, one dude walk from outside the camera into the scene, and then they're just like standing there, and then they just start talking like back and forth. Minimally, maybe change the camera angle, have some like stuff happen. I don't know. I just feel like the company is so rich now that they should do more of that. But obviously, you know, they're just trying to save costs or something. But I really wish they do more with that stuff. Yeah.
happened to Show Don't Tell. This was something the PS2 game was great at, but Reload dumbs down for whatever reason. This is apparent as early as the very first cutscene in the game. I love the original game's opening because it's a perfect tone setter. It's such a simple scene when you look at it on the outside, but it perfectly sets your expectations for the kind of world you're about to experience. It features Makoto walking through Tatsumi Port Island, blasting his headphones, almost as if he's trying to drown out the rustle and bustle of the city around him. However, at the same time as this, we're intermittently shown flashes of another story taking place. A mysterious girl places what looks to be a firearm to her head. She's trembling, her breath is shaky, and just when you think she's about to go through with it and pull the trigger, she breaks down crying. All of the proper emotions are conveyed without any dialogue, and the quick cuts between the regular everyday and Yukari's desperation builds a lot of suspense and intrigue. The Reload version of this cutscene guts all interesting direction and composition in favor for something way less engaging. The quick cuts are gone, and Yukari now has added dialogue that takes away from the suspense. There's also just a general lack of build-up now. While it's true that both versions of this scene have the exact same thing to say, one clearly does it in a much more engaging way that actually respects the audience. A lot of the cutscenes feel like this, to be honest. Sure, the animation quality is higher and the characters are more consistently on model.
I think they're both I think they're both low quality. Sorry, low quality relative to the time standard. When I watched the original Persona 3, I always feel like the when I watched the original Persona 3, I always feel like the animation is, you know, most of the time people are just standing still and not doing much. And that's the same in Persona 3 Reload. I think they don't want to put too much money in the cutscene because it's probably going to be too expensive. Even the fight, you know, between Aegis on the bridge with Death, it was so short. Doesn't they just do like one flip and then that's it or something like that? I don't remember. It was really short. But again, yeah, I'm trying to say quality related, relative to the time that they were made. If you just compare like back that animation to this animation, obviously this one gonna be better. It's actually animated by Wit Studio, I think, which is the people who do Attack on Titan, and they're definitely capable of more if you give them money. But obviously, the cutscene are just like a little bit extra thing. I think is, I don't know. I wish they do put more money into the cutscene, but I feel like they really don't put that much effort into it or money into it. I see both sides of this. Oh, you wanna elaborate?
But the composition and direction pales in comparison to the original game. The animated cutscenes before were saved for key moments where the in-game models wouldn't do the scene justice. They got creative with the presentation here, and are probably some of the better cutscenes in the series, even if the animation could be stilted. Reload's animated cutscenes feel off, almost as if they were included out of obligation rather than as a creative choice. Some of them didn't even make the cut either, and are now just adapted in engine. The protagonist's awakening is one of the biggest downgrades because of it. What was once one of the most legendary moments in the franchise is now a very flaccid and boring awakening. In the classic game, there was a lot.
Why? I want to know why. Tell me why. Oh, maybe he's gonna tell me why soon. But I actually think that 3D cutscene are better than 2D.
A lot of time spent building up to the moment.
At least that's how I remember it.
Where Makoto pulls the trigger. The scene goes silent, with nothing but his heartbeat ringing in your ear. It gains intensity, beating faster and faster as he slowly pieces everything together. The fear in his breath alone adds so much intensity to the scene. But when it finally all clicks and he fully understands what's going on, he gives a slight smirk. And then, BAM! The evoker fires off and the music kicks in. It's the perfect introduction to the game's main concepts of having a strong will, even the most terrifying of times. The Reload version of this scene ditches all of that, and it's just so much cheaper and lamer by comparison. I don't understand why cutscenes like this and Shinjiro's death don't get fully animated cutscenes, but the fanservicey swimsuit stuff does. Like, what are they trying to say here? Should seeing Yukari in a bikini...
If anything, I think... So I don't really entirely disagree with what he just said in terms of like conveying emotion there, but there's a lot of part that I feel like the emotion they're trying to go for become different. But no, I do agree that like it would be nice if they put more work into a cutscene in general, even if it's 3D or 2D or it doesn't matter. Like even the 3D scene, sometimes I do feel like they should really put in more work into it.
Have a higher priority than one of the most important cutscenes in the entire game. There's something almost disrespectful about the new cutscenes, as if I'm not trusted as an audience member to understand
disrespectful. Really?
the emotions I'm supposed to feel. The cutscene when Tartarus goes away in the original was this melancholic victory, just when the members of SEES thought they lost their...
You know, my favorite cutscene of the older version is the ending cutscene, because like Koromaru looked like a freaking monster in that cutscene. Hold on. He's like a funny looking dog. It's like my favorite shit ever. You guys see that fucking Koromaru? This is, yo, I'm all for this, okay? Like I'm all for this. This Koromaru is what make the original much better. Give me more of this non-stop, dude. Someone said Persona adapt to anime overtimes. I feel like the second 2D anime cutscene are a lot more akin to anime of the time now. One modern trope, in my opinions, is they talk a lot when I feel like it's not needed. Okay, fair enough. For FES, I do think it does a better job at show, don't tell, but it's tend to go crazy with the edit, with Reload, while it look cleaner. It lost point of for a lack of show, don't tell. I agree with him, but the swimming suit are animated cause it's a scene based off a physical appearance, but the death is the one based on emotion. Yeah, my final thought in regarded to this is it doesn't really matter to me if it's 2D or 3D, but I think the quality generally can be higher on both end. Except that Koromaru cannot be top off. He looked like a table. He looked like a fucking table, dude. So can someone make this table? I want to buy this table. Like, imagine having a coffee on top of that.
Leader, he reappears at the entrance. We see the relief on all of their faces. However, Aegis starts crying uncontrollably. Despite her mechanical body, she still has a human soul inside of her. This was all conveyed without any dialogue or music, just powerful visuals. And if that's not confidence, then I don't know what is. Reload feels the need to add a bunch of dialogue and a cheesy reunion scene. Come on guys, people said C's weren't friends in the original, so we gotta make sure they know that the characters are worried about each other. It's completely unnecessary and takes me out of the experience. Yes, you still are experiencing the Persona 3 narrative, but the storytelling itself is a massive step back. You can have the best ideas in the world, but if you fail to communicate them effectively to your audience, then it's not gonna leave a massive impact on them. This is something that the PS2 game did without breaking a sweat, but something that the remake struggles with often. However, this doesn't mean that the game never finds its groove, because when it
Like also the scene where Nyx is defeated, I can like the scene of Aegis crying, but I think in Reload, Aegis running to Makoto in a detail is a detail that I don't think is appreciated enough. Criminally underrated. Yeah, probably. I mean, I have to rewatch the scene, but there are probably a lot of stuff that people don't think too much about. That's why this kind of YouTube channel and my exists, right? Like some people like listening to people who overthink or just think a lot about stuff. And yeah, maybe if you were to, you know, explain that scene, there might be people who are interested in listening to it, and I would be interested, you know, to see a breakdown of different scenes and stuff like that. People love cheese. Yeah, me too.
it does, it results in some of the most impactful Persona 3 content you can find.
So chapter 4, we're nearly
Big
there.
selling points for Persona 3 Reload are the linked episodes. In the original game, the player could only form social links with the female party
The Link episode to me is hit and miss. Let's see where he's going with this.
members. I'll fully admit that this was a bit of an odd choice, but when you play the game, you don't end up missing it all too much. But at the same time, I don't think anyone would pass on the opportunity to learn more about these characters. Persona 3 Portable was the first time players were given the chance to forge bonds with the male cast, though it was locked behind the FemC route. I'm a bit mixed on these social links. On one hand, I appreciate the attempt to broaden our view of the main cast and show us sides of these characters that we normally wouldn't get to see. There's some pretty standout moments buried in here, but at the same time, there are some strange decisions that I'd rather go without. And that's where I'm stopping this conversation because some of you guys get pretty fucking weird about this. The prospect of something like this.
No, don't. I love talking about Ken. Man, we need to talk more about Ken, man. I freaking want to see it. Talk about Ken, man.
This returning in Reload was a given. Nevertheless, it was interesting to see how they decided to handle it. Rather than giving us full social links, we instead get a handful of side episodes. They're basically the same, but shorter, always advanced when given the choice, and interestingly enough, are time sensitive. It's nothing to worry about though. As long as you knock them out right away, it'll be good. Before Reload came out, I was extremely worried about these. I haven't exactly made it a secret that I'm not a big fan of the way Atlus characterizes the Persona 3 cast outside of the original game. My biggest fear going into Reload was that it was going to be very obvious that this new content was written by completely different people. I was worried that they'd make the characters too friendly towards each other and go overboard on the fan service. This was something that they were actually cautious about while making Portable. Legendary Atlus staff Azusa Kaido, who directed the FemC route of P3P, had this to say about the subject in an old fanbook interview.
You could say that in previous versions, the players' friends aren't actually all that close to them. I wouldn't say we drastically changed that. I mean, P3's atmosphere fundamentally is one of disconnect of strangers. If we were to toss out that atmosphere and have everyone get along like in P4, we would be telling a completely different story.
Now, Azusa Kaido did not come back to work on the Persona 3 remake. While she is in the credits, that's for her contribution to the original game.
I always feel like the Shinjiro social link is kind of false. It's happened so fast.
Despite her absence, what she says in this interview still rings true to the
Social link of the portable one.
approach Reload takes with its linked episodes. The linked episodes are some of the better additions to the game, and I wouldn't mind seeing this returning in the future. The 10 rank requirement for social links restricts the amount of stories that can be told. An issue that the Persona games are sometimes guilty of is stretching what should be a short story to its absolute limits just to hit that
100%. That's one thing I don't like. I feel like the 10 rank social link is a mechanic that become kind of like a prison that they have to live in. Like some story doesn't need to be that long. Like I think Bebe's story is good, but it doesn't need to be that long. Then there's more, but they have to fit in that like freaking 10 social link.
10 rank requirement. More than once have I felt as though social links have included some form of padding just to meet their criteria. By halving the amount of ranks, we can only focus on the good stuff. What's interesting about the linked episodes though is that they actually tie into events that happen in the main story. Some more than others, but it allows the new ranks unlocked to feel special when you know you're getting a party member's raw thoughts on the events that have been going down. But I wouldn't get too excited if I were you. These aren't the most substantial additions to the game, and one could argue that the FemC social links offer a more complete experience on the whole. I feel as though Reload does an alright job with the hand it's dealt with though. If you're a fan of these characters, you're bound to find some moments that will resonate with you, whether that be because it gives further clarification on a specific aspect of that character, or because it works well as a piece of foreshadowing for the main story. Ryoji's linked episode does a great job at this. It takes what's otherwise a lackluster character and gives the player much more meat to chew on.
Yeah, so this kind of scene is what I'm saying. It sucks that they were just kind of standing there and the camera just straight at them. I wish they had more camera play, because this is actually a pretty meaningful and interesting dialogue they're talking about. They don't really do it though. I feel like Persona have enough money. Persona team have enough money to do something like that. Yeah, true. Sometimes they're really stretched out. Sometimes though, yeah, some of them you can really feel. The story, there's a lot of story that I think is better. Like I think Ken one is much better, but then there's not much to compete because the original Ken story is kind of bad. Shinjiro is so much better. It's probably one of the better one. I really like that they include Misaru into the story more. Because they keep mentioning that, you know, the C started with 3 of them, but in the original one, they don't really include Misaru into the story, just Akihiko. Are you gonna come to Taiwan for the 10%? Oh, I don't have enough money to travel. Despite what you think, despite how much money you think I make from the channel, it's not much, trust me. I can't. But that would actually be cool if I can travel one day.
The overall quality of the link depends heavily on the characterization. Akihiko is a character that suffers from this. We've gone from protein jokes to always talking about training. I swear, I don't think there's a single new cutscene featuring this character that doesn't mention this at least once. I understand that his obsession with power is the driving force behind his character in the main story, but we don't need constant reminders of that, you know? I'd prefer a much more subtle approach if possible, but that doesn't seem to be this game's strong suit. Junpei's linked episode is one that I feel a bit mixed on. On one hand, it's interesting that it puts an emphasis on his relationship with Chidori, but on the other, it almost spells out all the nuances of his character in the main story. It directly addresses his jealousy and how it's a symptom of his lack of purpose in life. Just like with Akihiko, we don't need reminders of this. It comes off.
I think Akihiko is one of the missed opportunity. Again, I still feel like Akihiko's stories can be better. And there is some part that I really feel is, you know, again, you know, I'm assuming you guys already, you know, play Akihiko Link episode, but I don't think they should have give you an option when he give you the medal, because there's an option to put the medal on him and to not. I don't know why that's an option. I think it should always 100% put it on him. It's make it for a much more emotional impact. But I still think there's some stuff that could have been better in his story. I feel like there's more. I wish you see him struggle more in it. Pretty much you're supposed to see him struggle in the main story, because what turned him around is the event that happened to Shinjiro. But I wish you see more of him. I wish you see him struggle more in the Link episode about that a little bit more.
More so as a lack of faith in the audience, rather than a natural inclusion if you were to ask me. As if we couldn't be trusted to put 2 and 2 together ourselves, and we just had to have it further hammered in. I've been talking a lot about how this game lacks subtlety, but to be fair, a lack of subtlety can be effective sometimes. Like with Ken, for example. One of his early Linked episode ranks heavily hints at what he's going to do after the events of October 4th. I feel like you can only fully appreciate this scene if you've experienced Persona 3 in some form or fashion before this. It's an emotional gut punch that reminds you that he's just a kid, but at the same time, I feel as though it's a little too on the nose. Like, Ken's dark thoughts are meant to be a twist to the player revealed on the day he planned on carrying them out. It shocks the player because up until then, you never thought a kid would ever reach the bottom of that abyss. For first-time players, this cutscene might just be the game playing its hand a little too early. Though as someone deeply familiar with this story, I appreciate this as an addition. It just goes to show how serious he was about his plan, which speaks volumes of his mental state at the time. On the whole, Linked
Have you checked out the FMC mod on P3R? I know what it looked like, but I'm not really planning to use it. Seeing him struggle in the Persona 3 movie really get to me. Same with Ken as well. Yeah, I wish they have that more in the Link episode, cause the thing is, right, it's just happened really fast. So how the story is like, okay, Shinjiro thing happened, then the next day I think he'd go and talk with him, at the school, well, to his picture, right? And then after that he awakened his next persona. So then that he already have his resolution immediately. You can still make that happen, but still make him doubt it later on to expand it a little bit to see that he still struggle a little bit. But yeah, he pretty much that happened. And the next Link episode, I think, is he just let's make pancake for everybody because now I want to spend time with people. I feel like it would be nice to have him more struggle. For the Ken thing, the original theme of him is like really hard to understand, or it's really invisible. I think the story of Ken is like what Nam said. If you is a veteran of the series, you can tell what they're going with. But if you're the person who just get into the game, it's like, what is the deal with the kid? Because he's also have a justice arcana if you play in the portable version, but his entire deal is about him being a kid, but you're not supposed to treat him as one. You're not supposed to treat him as one because he's really emotionally mature. Like there's a little bit hidden there. For example, in the older game, he actually is good enough to trick people into doing stuff. I think he was trying to use like reverse psychology on Junpei and stuff like that. And he can deal with a lot of heavy situation. The only thing that he's gonna his mind's gonna cloud it about is the death of his mother, which is understandable. And Justice Arcana is about what's being fair should be fair, right? So like just because he's a kid, but it's fair to treat him as an adult, you should treat him as such. So compared to Shihiro story is much more clear, right? Like, she's thinking that all men is bad, but in all fairness, every man is different to a certain extent. So you treat him as such. And later on, she also confront so she meet the main character, which is a good guy, right? She break that fear, and later on she confront like a dude, which is the teacher that's trying to well, not really trying to. He just gonna like ruin her reputation. From not being brave enough or care enough to take care of the situation. Like, yeah. So like the entire story is about to treat him as an adult rather than a kid, even though he is a kid. I think that's also the reason why they might have removed the part where Shinjiro say like in the original, you remember he said that like in the cutscene where he passed away, he said like, "Hey kids, you're just a kid, so you still have a lot to live on." I think they removed that for that reason because you're not of all the people, Shinjiro probably understand the most that despite him being the kid, he doesn't want to be treated as one, and he's way more mature for his age, right? Like you can even see in his Link episode as well, where he doesn't really fit in with kid his own age that much, even though there's some stuff that he still enjoy as a kid. For example, he liked the Featherman stuff, right? But like in terms of like emotional maturity, he's like an adult, really. What country are you from? I'm from Thailand.
Episodes do offer something for returning fans to sink their teeth into, even if the quality is sometimes mixed. Though if you were to ask me, the best Linked episode in the entire game is Shinji's.
Fucking 100%, yo. I don't care. This video is right now 100% because he said one thing that I agree with. I'm just kidding. He said a lot of things I agree with. It's mixed here and there, but yeah. Shinji's Link episode is so good.
Shinjiro Aragaki is the best part about Persona 3 Reload. It's the only time in the game where I feel as though every aspect clicks together and creates something that truly lives up to the spirit of the original game, while also surpassing it in quality. Shinji is a temporary party member. He's a man of few words and keeps mostly to himself, rejoining C's on a mission of atonement more than anything. Though his life is tragically cut short, and he acts as a metaphor for the fragility of life. Not everyone will get a happy ending. Sometimes business will go unresolved. So it's best to make the most out of your life while you still can. Treasure those small moments, because you'll never know when it'll come to an end. In the original game, there wasn't a a whole lot to work with. You got a good sense of his personality.
This cutscene is so much better in the original.
Beyond that, there isn't much done with him. Shinji wasn't the most fleshed out character in the world, but he didn't need to be for his role in the story. Reload does a lot to improve Shinji's characterization, not just by giving him more to work with because of his dorm activity and linked episodes, but by also vastly improving his role in combat. The glow-up Shinji got is insane. He went from being pretty mediocre to one of the best party members in the entire game. In fact, he might even be the best depending on your priorities. His skill selection was vastly improved from the original. He hits like a truck thanks to Bloody Charge, and he straight up just got the best personality.
He is so strong, dude. I don't even use Shinji as much in the original. In this one, I just want to keep freaking using him because he's so cool. Like, he's strong and he's cool and his story is interesting. God is hurt. Yeah, not again.
And the amount of damage you can deal with his theurgy is just absurd. So even if you hated his character for some reason, losing access to his kit and affinities for combat is a noticeable blow. You immediately start missing Shinji once he's gone, and that's something I could never say about him in the PS2 version.
That's so
his actual
good,
linked
yeah.
Episode 2 is also very well handled. It focuses on the relationship he has with Akihiko and Mitsuru. The former was something we already got plenty of, but the latter was always neglected by comparison.
Yeah, what I just mentioned before, right? I think everybody's probably agree with this. Why saying that like they start Siege together but don't include Mitsuru in the original and even in Portable suck, and they fixed that really well in this one.
By focusing our attention on Shinji's relationship with Mitsuru, we're able to get a much better picture of what the original trio was like. We're even given some literal glimpses to the past. This is fan service done right, since it's additive and provides more nuance to the character that we otherwise wouldn't have. It's impossible to talk about this Link episode without mentioning its ending. If you made it this far in, I doubt you mind spoilers. Throughout the Link, Mitsuru has been trying to convince Shinji to re-enroll in Gekkoukan High. This is something that
You already showed a picture of Nyx. I think we're cool.
is vehemently against. At every turn, he tries to weasel his way out of it, even going as far as to ask the protagonist to return the registration form to Mitsuru. Though with enough pressure, you can convince Shinji to hold onto it, even though he has no intentions of going back. At least, that's what he says. In reality, it was a different story. After his death, you're able to go into his room and find the registration form, only this time, it's filled out. It turns out that before his death, Shinji had a change of heart and planned on getting his life back in order. However, the day before he handed the form in, he tragically passed away. I'll be honest, this hit me pretty hard, and it was from the last character I was expecting to. This is the only time where I felt as though Reload was firing on all cylinders. The gameplay and story were intersecting with each other to create a unique experience that you couldn't get anywhere else in this series. But the thing is, this is the exception to the rule rather than the status quo. If the entirety of Reload was like this, if the game put in the effort to expand on ideas from the original title, while also having the game design and mechanics to express those messages, then I have no doubt in my mind that this would have been a great remake. But with the way things are now, we just occasionally get splashes of creativity in a sea of mediocrity. And if that isn't tragic, then I don't know what is.
No, I don't have that. What the future holds, let's
Persona
go.
3 Reload was a massive success both critically and financially. It's easily the most popular version of the game to be released, and will most likely be the status quo going forward. To some people, that might be great news, but I'm not-
I don't want to talk about it too much because I hate well, I don't really hate it, but I just don't really want to make it a big deal. But generally my life is just started recently, even though I'm not really that young anymore. The reason that it started recently is because I got into major depression for a while. So I didn't work or didn't like improve myself in any way or have any trade or anything like that for a long time. And last year when I started to upload on this channel is pretty much when you know, I stopped taking antidepressant. So there's a I'm not that young, but not that super old, but I'm still at a really early phase of my life, so I want to keep all the money really.
entirely sure how I feel about it. Like, where exactly does this franchise go from here? My only guess is the big number 6, which has been in development for years at this point. But I can only assume that the massive success of Reload is going to influence how Atlus approaches their titles going forward. Would I like to see Reload's mechanics and design brought back in future games? I don't know, maybe. But I'd rather see each entry have unique qualities and ideas of their own instead of being forced to follow some one-size-fits-all formula for the sake of pandering and catering to a wider audience. In Reload's case, it took sacrificing nearly every unique and interesting part of the original Persona 3 style and game design just so it can fit more in line with P5. This results in a mess of a remake that does hit the main beats you would expect, but lacks the creative direction and edge that made the game stand out to begin with. Again, Reload isn't bad, it's just one of the safest and blandest ways they could have interpreted this classic title into the modern era. Persona 3 is more than just its story and characters. Game design, art direction, combat mechanics, all of it played a monumental part in carving out the Persona 3 experience. It all comes back to what I said at the start of this video. Persona 3 is a game of its era, one that was created at a time when Atlus was on the cusp of bankruptcy. When you remove the title from that context and try to fit it in with their most popular game, game, that's how we end up here. Yes, there's fun to be had with Reload, but I'd much rather stick with the original title even if it's lacking some of the quality of life features because it's so unapologetically itself. Persona 3 was a game that was willing to take risks and experiment, which is the exact opposite approach that this remake has. And if this is the direction they plan on taking with the series in the future,
You need to appeal to wider audience. You want your game to blow up. Yeah, because Persona 3 is successful. Obviously, that's why we have Persona 4. But as the series go on, and yeah, the game does get more simpler or more forgiven. The main goal is to appeal for the wider audience, and I don't think actually, I know so at this point, right? We know so that the success at that 100%, and I feel like even the director, what is his name, Hashino or whatever, he's probably already think his job is done in that regard. That's why he moved on to play Metafall, because Metafall have press turn system. So I think Metafall will be not as easy as Persona, but I don't know if it will be as hard as SMT.
then I can't exactly say I'm excited. God forbid they remake Persona 1 and 2 next, because I can already imagine how much will get thrown out for the sake of making it digestible to people who wouldn't even play it. Or even worse, they remake Persona 4, a game that I actually really care about. No thanks, I'm good.
That's fine, but then why would you... Does that hurt his soul? Maybe it does hurt his soul. Because, you know, if they make it, then he doesn't have to play it, right? But then it get more people to learn about the series that you like. And maybe to some people, they will even try the original after they learn about it. How would they ruin Persona 4? By making it too easy. That's what Nam gonna said. I'm not gonna feel that way, but that's probably what Nam gonna say.
You know, there was a point in time where I considered Atlus to be one of the greatest developers out there. They were a studio that was willing to push the envelope and create experiences that you couldn't find anywhere else. And Persona 3 was the poster child of this. A unique and unconventional game that had a lot to say.
Fuck, this social link is so good too!
Did so in a way that was groundbreaking at the time. Was it perfect? No, but it wasn't afraid to be itself either. When I think of Persona 3, I think of its unique quirks. I think of the experimental combat that works to demonstrate the game's main themes. I think of the legendary art direction and cutscenes. And yes, I even think of the story and characters as well. It all came together to create something truly special, something that this remake failed to recapture. In the credits,
Bro, that is cool though. I think that, like, to me that looked better.
it all came together
Like this, okay, but I guess he doesn't like the colorful thing, but like, okay, this
something
egg,
truly special, something that
and this egg, yo, this camera angle is so much more dynamic. But yeah, sure, like, I guess he wanted to be like grim looking.
remake failed to recapture. In the credits, you'll notice a section dedicated to the original team.
Have you seen the video Persona 3 Reload, a worldless remake? It's good if you want to facepalm. Is that one is like is it just like trash talking? Because like this video is very far away from trash talking. It is opinionated. But of course he makes it with a lot of you know, facts. Some truth, there's a lot of truth. But yeah, a lot of them is like opinionated. It's that one probably is just like, yeah, probably, oh, it's trash.
While a nice gesture, it just further highlights that this isn't the same Atlus anymore. This isn't the same Persona 3 anymore. And to some
Yeah, I guess, not gonna lie, I guess if they make it just like what he thought about P3R, then he'll have a lot to say about Persona 4 Remake. Oh yeah.
people, maybe that's what they always wanted, and you know what? That's good for them. But for me, this remake represents everything wrong with modern Atlus, and
Everything?
I really wish that wasn't the case.
The thing is, I feel like if they don't do it the way that you mentioned, then you might not even have a modern Atlas.
You can always mimic the brushstrokes, but you'll
Like,
never
you might not even have Atlas right now. I don't know.
recapture the soul behind someone else's art.
Are we there? I fucking love this cutscene, dude. Like, you probably already watched a lot of my video, but I really love this in cutscene where everybody is gone and then there's only like an armband and a evoker left. It's really show, you know, where like everybody move on, but like the things that we do remains with the place that we do them in. You know, like, oh, everybody's gone now, but the facts that we fought here in this school, and you know, the people that we fight alongside is still here. It's still here. It'll always be part of this place, even though the people move on. This part right here is what I have a problem with. P3 Reload represent everything that is wrong with modern Atlas. That's something I have hard time believing. I think he's probably losing it at the end there, to be honest. But I'm pretty sure he already have a conclusion that he doesn't, you know, like it. But I can, if you watch the entire thing, which you did, right? You watched it with me. He tried to kind of like balance it really well, where like, oh, okay, I don't like it, but if you like it, that's cool. Or like, oh, I'm not saying it's entirely bad. So he's trying to balance it, so trying to keep people together, right? But it's the end of the video, which I think at that point, like, fuck it. Fuck it. You already watched my 1 hour shit, okay? Like, you're done, bro. You watched my 1 hour shit. Like, I enjoy it. And are allowed to leave at any time? Yeah, wait, why? You don't have to ask the permission to leave. Like, I'm never, you know, I'm never really forcing people to watch any of my contents. I appreciate it if you watch it, but you should never feel obligated to. You should consume it because you like it. Right? Like, the relationship I have with my viewer, I don't want it to be like a hostage relationship where you feel like, bro, if I don't watch on his video, he's gonna like lose so much money. No, that's stupid, okay? Like, it's fine, just leave. If you can go somewhere. But yeah, we're done watching this. You forced me once. Yeah, just you, Curfy. Oh yeah, God, the cutscene is just so strong without any word. I will remember everything in that. Yeah, this the part's nice. I joined my base and I watched this video. Yeah. Well, it'll be in the WOD if you want to watch it from this. If anybody want to watch it from the start. But yeah, mainly, thanks for chilling with me. Yes, actually, yesterday is my birthday, but I went out to, you know, family dinners. So I didn't really have time to set this up until this time. It's probably a better time better schedule anyway for this time. But yeah, thanks so much for being here and just chilling with me watching this. If this is the first time you watch the live stream, for the future going forward, I will do live stream, but it's most likely just gonna be this kind of stuff. Yeah, interesting stuff to react to, and I'm not gonna spam it because I know most people prefer like a normal video format. So if I have something interesting I wanna watch or discuss with everybody, I will set up a live stream, and then yeah, you can come in and tell me if you agree, disagree, or you think what I said as a comment is stupid. I'm always up for it. You can always say what I said is stupid, by the way, but please explain why. Because yeah, if you just like trash or like just don't explain yourself, I actually dislike that kind of shit. I don't mind disagree or saying that like, yeah, okay, what you're saying is dumb. But yeah, please explain yourself, because I appreciate that kind of interaction. I enjoy it. Happy birthday. Also, good luck with your life from now onward. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll be around. I didn't watch it all. I mostly disagree a lot of things. I don't see P3 Reload as a game that replaced the original. I see it as a game that stands next with Fest and Potable. Yeah, like, I mean, I don't think... So, I can agree that it lost its identity, but before I started the video, I already said that I feel like after I watch it, I'm gonna say it doesn't matter. Because, like I mentioned, all this grim thing that he was mentioned about, it is the substance of the original. But when I play Persona 3, what stay with me is, you know, the friendship, how people deal with death, the conclusion that the main character or Aegis or other people reach at the end, and it's still all there in Reload, in my opinion, to a pretty good extent, right? Like, that's what I remember playing Persona 3 Reload. I don't like, it's agey, and that's what stick with me. It stick with me because it's an agey game, and now it's not agey as much as before, so now it's sucked. So I don't feel that way, but I think people should have their own opinion, and the angle that is coming from, it makes sense why he felt that way. It's probably pretty valid, depending on who watched the video, right? Anyway, all right. Hey, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for all the happy birthday thing. I'll see you guys whenever I drop the next video. Okay, have a good one. It's not perfect games, but I still consider it as my favorite video games. I still believe it has its identity. Happy birthday. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.